Happy Sunday. Welcome to the live stream. See already there's a little bit of folks hanging out, so that's awesome. Thank you for popping in. Hopefully your evening's going well. So I do have a little bit, I was very happy that I noticed that a couple of folks did take advantage of what I put out there and did leave a couple of topic ideas, which is actually really handy and really helpful. So I've got a couple of things on the list to put on today. Kind of in the same vein as last Sunday, I'm going to get started right away, and I'll actually put up the link to join in pretty much at the beginning here, and at the same time, I'm also going to I'll pin it to the comments as well. So if you can see me, just let me know, and as we go along, we're going to be looking at comments, the usual thing, and if there's any topics or anything you guys want to touch on, go for it. So sounds good. So let's go here. So I got Jeff here. Perfect. Looking forward to another great show. Thank you, Jeff. And hope first week went well. It was pretty good. It's just the ramping up process is always the interesting thing. I didn't actually have my laptop for the first week, and I got my notice just over the weekend that UPS is going to be delivering on Monday. So I'll have that. A lot of basically just training videos and a lot of the usual thing, the kind of thing you would expect. Onboarding, but not in an office, but over the internet, which is a new experience for me to onboard a new job without actually being able to set foot in an office. BT Sports Card, well, glad you could catch a live one, so good evening to you. So let me quickly grab the link here, and I'm going to add that. So usual format of the show, I am going to be kind of hardline on time because Mondays are usually a early start now, but I will get the link here so that if anybody wants to pop in and join, you certainly can. It doesn't have to be video. You can also do audio only. If you're more comfortable with that, you're more than welcome to it. But the other aspect of it is that I will kind of monitor and keep an eye on whoever decides to pop in and join, just to because we don't have too much time to have too much fun, so we can definitely go on tangents, but they got to be tangents that at least make some sense. So anyway, so let me quickly grab this, and I'll pin the link. Perfect. And Sanderson Orr, good evening. I noticed I caught the replay of Jeremy's live stream, so I can see that you popped into that one as well. So that's good. So at least you're enjoying yourself, hopefully. Let me quickly see here. All right, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's see. All right, take your bets. You can guess what I'm gonna say here, but let's take your bets. Let's see. All right, what do you got, Bobby? Nope. First try is always wrong. All right, you know the drill. We'll see you in a minute. All right, Mr. Canadian Cards, if you'd like to join in, just nod your head. You good? All right, Mike, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you. How have things been?
Been busy. Just gearing up. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods on Easter Monday, getting a new hip. So
Well, that would do it. Yeah. That sounds
yeah,
fair. Which
yeah.
which facility is doing that for you?
Sunnybrook Orthopedic on Wellesley, I believe it is.
That sounds about right. I'm not.
Yeah,
The name rings a bell for sure. Definitely sounds
yeah.
about right.
It's like kind of in the. It's weird because I don't know Toronto facilities at all, but
Hmm.
it's just they just do hips and knees. So
Hmm.
I'm there.
So is it more of a you needed it more urgently, or you kind of knew that it was going to be something you required?
Uh no, I've known it for a bit, but I seen a orthopedic surgeon in Hamilton in September, and he said, "Yeah, so we're going to bring you back in March."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Wow, that quick?" And he's like, "No, just for new X-rays. You probably won't get your new hip till January of 2022." And I was like, "What?" So someone in my football world recommended a certain surgeon.
Okay.
I got a reference in, and I seen her 10 weeks ago, and here we go.
All right. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me quickly grab Bobby here. Bobby, good evening.
Are we here?
Yep, you are here. We can hear you and we can see you.
Yeah, I guess so. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Bobby, how are you?
Keeping busy.
Attaboy.
Jeff
Attaboy.
says hello, Mike, as well.
Yay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And GMOs, yes. I did actually figure out what the problem. Well, to be fair, this microphone is always naturally going to be quieter. That I know for a fact. Just the way it's designed, it's actually supposed to be because it's supposed to keep you from peaking too high in volume because that's what it's designed for. But for some reason, StreamYard reset my volume on it. I actually had it set to a certain level. It actually knocked it all the way down to like the lower side of the volume scale. I never noticed and never realized it. And on replay, it didn't sound too bad to me, so I didn't catch it. But they said, "Oh, your volume's really low," and I said, Shouldn't be. I checked the thing and it had knocked it all the way down. I was like, okay, well that explains it.
So
let me
is it
bump
an
it all the way.
update or something that automatically like your iPhone does?
Well,
Or?
they did. They did make a couple of updates to StreamYard though. They did add some features and stuff, so it's a possibility that it happened. Plus, I've got a new a little docking station here that I'm using to connect the microphone to, so that might have changed some settings too. So it's one of those things I didn't notice it, but yeah. So I fixed it, so hopefully now it sounds better. It seems to be, so that's cool.
Any updates, Carlos or Bobby? Obviously, we're not going to have a Toronto Expo in the spring,
No,
but are they going to do virtual again? Is that the
virtual for
plan?
sure. Hmm.
Virtual for sure?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you foresee it coming back potentially in the fall if things trend the right way, or do you think it's pretty much a no go for this year?
Your last statement there is the absolute key one. It has to trend the right way, and the problem is it's been hit and miss, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Number of vaccinations is also kind of an important factor because if you can get enough of those out there, then
yeah.
you could be like, okay, we'll do it, mask required. Like
Right.
you could like hedge your bets a little bit and be like, no, mandatory, no choice. You want in mask, no mask, so you stay outside.
Right.
And if you hold the line on that, then that could give
Yeah.
you a better chance too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be good. And if we keep if they start vaccinating down from the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, once you get down to the 30 and under, the survival rate is near 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
It just always boggles my mind. And listen, I know it's a real thing, and all these people, oh, it's conspiracy. I've had some people I know in my circle that have actually had it, and they said, oh, it's terrible, and
Mhm.
like the worst flu plus a hangover times 100 that you ever had.
Yeah, it's hit and
And
miss. It just depends on the person. It's very much
yeah,
dependent on the individual.
and I just kind of look at it. It's like, I'll go to a Costco and there'll be 300 or 400 people in there,
Mhm.
but yet,
God forbid you get your haircut.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, I know they deem Costco essential because they do sell food, but I just, sometimes I have a hard time swallowing the fact that what you can do one but not the other. So
Well, I will say one thing though, from a practical perspective, because your point is valid. Totally with you. I get
Mhm.
it. One thing that I'll throw at you as well is that part of it is just that it's hit and miss because they're like, okay, look, we sort of know how things spread. We sort of know how this is. And like we feel more comfortable with certain types of businesses, certain types of others. You have to balance the business thing because that's real. There are businesses that need to do business, people that need to go to work and do that. And something like a Costco, essential or not, the Costco employees there, actually, many of them get paid reasonably well. And if you
yeah,
cut that off, it's like they're working retail though, even though it's Costco, even though they do
yeah,
well. Um,
mhm,
like from a retail perspective, they're paid pretty well.
they are.
Well, you send them home, that money's gone, and that part of the economy shuts down too. So it's like it's all
Sure.
part and parcel of the thing.
Yeah.
The other thing with a big building and everything, it's how do you maintain again, even if you want to do it? How many people do you let in? And then the big
Right.
consideration, the other one, try running an expo because here's the thing, at the moment, I don't think they're still comfortable with. I don't think the border is going to open anytime soon. So,
Yeah.
okay, run the expo. Try running the expo with Canada only. You could, by the way, you totally
Yeah.
could, but
Yeah.
it would be very much diminished in the sense that you don't get the traffic coming up, and
Yeah.
some dealers from the States would be shut out. So it's like it would still be a little bit diminished compared to what you would expect, and that would throw a lot of things off as well.
Do you guys feel there's a lot of US dealers coming up that do the expo?
There are definitely a lot of U.S. Participants, though, like people who
Yeah.
come in to do shopping.
Especially the
Sure.
the,
Yeah,
the corporate.
yeah, corporate
Right.
for sure.
Yeah,
So
corporate, I get.
manufacturers and stuff would be like a no go. So that section would
Right.
be off.
Right.
Any autograph gets stateside, nope. So
Yeah.
you'd be losing a couple of different areas that you wouldn't have access to.
Right. Right.
I'd say
Yeah. I just
20% American, maybe?
It's got to be something like that, yeah. So it's one of
what's
the.
the what?
Go
Sorry.
go
What?
ahead.
Carlos? In the last few years, what do you think at the height of any one time at any given day on an expo attendees at one time? Like,
At
are we
one time.
talking like 500 more?
Attendees?
Like at one time. There's spurts of the day where
Thousands. On a Saturday, Mike, it's thousands. Many
is it
thousands.
really?
Oh, yes.
Early on,
There's hundreds of people in line just to go to the autographs.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for the
Okay.
autographs. And that doesn't count dealers. That doesn't count because on a Saturday is the big day. Saturday things
Yeah.
are clicking, especially like Saturday midday. That's kind of why I chill until later on in the afternoon. But the Saturday
Yeah.
midday is like it's clicking. The
Right.
busier booths, like in traditional expo time, the busier booths would be like people are standing all in front of these booths.
Right.
So these are for regular dealers. This isn't like a celebrity dealer or something. No, just a dealer who might have some interesting merchandise. Like you have to basically wait to somebody
Right.
to move so you can see the showcase.
Yeah. I went in 2019 in the spring.
Sure.
But I believe I was there on a Sunday, and it didn't seem that busy. I don't.
It depends. Sorry, which day did you go?
I think I think it was the Sunday.
Oh, Sunday, depending on what time you came. Some of them are
Yeah.
like starting to be like, all right, we're about to head out the
Yeah,
door.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see some of that stuff happening.
Start
People
packing
like,
up early.
Yeah, Sunday you'll very much get that sense, but I can promise you, in a traditional expo, if everything's running and going, Saturday it's clicking.
is
Pretty
that
much
right?
Well, the best indicator is this. To give you the example of what you're talking about.
Mm.
When the expo's clicking, going all the way on a Saturday, if you
Mhm.
show up before the door opens, sometimes there'll be like 250 people in line just to get in.
Wow.
So like that's at opening. That's at open, and then of course as the morning continues, more people go in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a bunch of them don't just show up for like 2 minutes and leave. Some of them hang around. Well, 250 people just as the door opens, another
Yeah.
dozen come in, another dozen come in. It's thousands, Mike. At
Right.
peak, it's thousands.
Okay. All right.
The expo back in 2000, or let's say 2005,
Mhm.
was, I think they were running probably around 12,000 people running through the expo.
Probably
There's
thereabouts. It's
20
a lot. It's a lot
for
more
the
than you
weekend,
think.
through the 3 days.
Yeah, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than you'd think. You don't get the sensation of it until you're there at peak time. The
Right.
autograph guests are clicking and going, and they're like that's happening at the back of the room, and then the corporate folk, because Upper Deck, to your number from a little bit ago,
Mm.
when Upper Deck's doing its giveaway, you could have 300 or 400 people standing around the Upper Deck booth.
Right.
It's just at that moment.
I guess get the true feeling. Because wherever you go, it's busy in your immediate area.
Mhm.
I guess if you had an overhead, it would give you the better perception of who's all there, because
Correct.
you just think, oh, maybe it's just busy in this area, and you're kind of going with the flow.
Yeah.
So I was at the National a few months after that in Chicago, and that's just like that's crazy, the
Yeah.
amount of people that are there. So I just couldn't remember, like back in the last time I went to an expo before 2019, I think was 93 or 4.
That's
So
a very big gap in the perception you're getting at for sure.
yeah. So,
The expo has dropped off since 2012, 2013, 14,
I
and
think
it's
that's
progressively getting less and less. Oh yeah, we went down to like
Yeah.
6,000.
Yeah.
From a maximum of maybe in its height back in the early days, 20,000. And we went down to 6,000. That's why Sunday's a ghost town. It's
Right.
sometimes, and then some days they're busy. And Saturdays is you see a lot of people pushing their kids around in carts. Nobody's really buying. Friday's the big day.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
remember some Fridays, the line went around the building, down the street. It was just
I remember
hundreds,
those days. I remember those
hundreds.
days. Yep.
And that's why I became a dealer, so I got in early, so I wouldn't have to stay in that line.
Yeah, no doubt. No
What I can
doubt.
say though is that this obviously, if they do manage to do the fall expo, this year is going to be an interesting test because right now every one of those shows, because historically, just to put it in context, even when it being down and all that stuff and coming in and all that happening, the expo up until Dallas has just clicked up just because right now a lot of
Yeah.
people have gone there, they're getting attention and all that. For
Mhm.
right now, this is new. And it might happen in the future, but at the moment, Dallas is taking advantage of this opportunity to have this regular show that people can attend and fly in and all that stuff.
Every 2 months.
Yeah, but historically, behind the National Expo is number 2 in North America because they were able to draw in terms of table count, in terms of number of dealers and things happening and all that. They were able to draw plenty after national, they were doing it twice a year. So they were doing it twice as many as the national. So they'd have 2 shows, and those shows, they're not rivaling the national, but they're with the next best thing. Dallas right now has got that spot just because they're running shows. But
Yeah.
if they were able to run Expo and they were able to get the American dealers and all this stuff,
It's gonna be
we
crazy.
would see Sasha. It's like, Sasha T is in Toronto. Why? He's like, because.
Because he's getting 25% on his dollar.
Correct.
Too.
Like opportunities would abound. You would be like, he would be out there like throwing $100 bills at people like it would be nobody's business. He would be
Yeah.
interested.
He's got nothing left now.
Exactly.
Yeah, he bought the
It was-
Charizard.
So quickly,
But
I'll
I
go.
think this Expo, if
Mhm.
we have the Americans come and it is back to regular Expo, even with masks or not,
Yeah.
it'll be an insane time. I think it'll maintain its regular numbers, even just being Canadian, just with
Sure.
what's going on in the marketplace. So I still think it'll maintain, let's say 6,000, 8,000 people, whatever. I think it'll
Right.
still maintain that.
I think
Dealers
we'll
coming
get a-
in,
think
I
we'll
don't
get
know
a-
if they're
I think
going to
we'll get a
enjoy
boost,
that.
though. I think we will get a boost though, given where the market is right now, because there's really aren't any other Canadian shows running. If you snap your fingers and said, "Oh, we're going to do Expo," the people out west would be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
fly
Yeah.
over." That's where I'm going to be interested. So let me grab a couple of these questions because there's a couple, and one of them directly pertains to kind of what we just talked about. So let me hit on these. So Hockey's just asking, what ultra modern is Bobby buying? All the ultra modern guys, all the ultra modern. Yep. That was you, Bobby. They spelled it out and everything. So good evening to Victor. Good evening, Charles. No worries. Have you guys gone to come to Massachusetts for any of the shows? I have not. I have been to Massachusetts a couple of times. Been in Boston area, but I've never attended any shows over there. And that was years ago. But I have definitely been down by that way for sure. I actually like
Shriner show, isn't it there?
I think so. I think that's right. I'll tell you though. I did enjoy my time in Boston and area. It's actually a pretty nice spot. And I hung around and kind of walked around Fenway a little bit. It was kind of fun. Just kind of hanging out as a tourist and being in that area. So it was kind of fun. I did enjoy it. So I was there a couple of times. So Hockey Guy here asks, when the restrictions end, do you feel the market will maintain or do you feel like it'll burn out? I don't think it has to be that extreme, but maintain is really hard with where we're at right now. Like the current is probably not sustainable. Like there's not enough energy to push it that far, but there's definitely
We are coming down though.
yeah. We'll use the terminology of the day. You could have a pullback, but the floor could be higher than it was before. So you could have a situation where you still have more people in, but it won't be like at the peak levels. You'll definitely get a drop off from peak levels, but you could have more than you did just prior to this gigantic run up, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. I could see that as being a real thing.
I wonder how much too. I mean, it's got to be a lot. The whole stimulus check packages that are going out to the U.S. residents, and it's like, it's found money.
Basically,
Not much though.
What's that?
Not much. They've delayed it so long that they're only getting 1,400 now. It wasn't 2,000, and they didn't. And it's taxable, and they're pushing it as far so they don't have to give it to them monthly. So by the time, that's why they're getting all the shots, so they don't have to give them the $1,400. So I think in the next few months, U.S. will be more than half done. I think it's already half done now, isn't it?
they've definitely been aggressive, which they should be. To be perfectly blunt, they should.
And we haven't at all.
Yeah. We've been very slack on it here.
Well, it's politicians. What do you want?
Well, the thing though, Bobby, is that we don't make it. So how aggressive do you want to be? We don't actually make the vaccine here.
But then we allocated our money towards that.
I understand. But remember, the people that where the vaccine is the place that is being doled out just south of the border. So you have to get it from them.
250 people in line waiting for
correct.
the door to
Yes,
open.
correct.
It's like the Expo. When Canada gets called, then we move up the line.
Yeah. If the energy had been put towards us having our own facilities making vaccine, then
we
maybe
did at one point.
Yeah, I get you, but I'm talking about in this specific situation.
Yeah.
If you had facilities here making your own, then you probably could. You'd be able to. You'd have easier access. You'd be able to say, okay, right now you're basically relying on. And I saw Comc mentioned here. It's like the problem is right now it's being shipped by Comc. We picked the second fastest service, so probably a couple months. We'll get back to you. We'll come back to Comc in a minute. But I thought I'd have a little fun with that one since it was there. So Sanders is saying, yeah, Bobby being the vintage guy can't help but say yes, Bo. Yep, that's fair. Little Bobby Orr and some Esposito. Why not? Bobby buys the Hyper Omega Super Spectra Vinyl Diffusion Fractors. Love it. Love it. Yep, the Shriner Show is the big one. That sounds right. Yeah, so you're hockey. Looking to cash out most of the non-PC cards. I think, so the first part of your statement, I don't think is a terrible idea. I don't see any issue with it because right now, if you have some non-PC stuff and you could use the money, sure, why not? Like, there's no reason, take the profits. There's nothing wrong with that. Many will leave the hobby. The problem is that many is a really open matrix. I just said a second ago, it's like, yes, but what's many? It's kind of like the analogy that I used when somebody was talking about the Jordan. And in a video, I gave an extreme analogy to point out like the silliness of it. It's like, so imagine if the Michael Jordan rookie, when it was at its peak, almost $700,000, imagine if it had a 90% correction, 90% drop. It would still would have been higher than it was before.
Right.
So it's like, I bet a year ago, a 90% decline, and it still would be higher than it was 1 year ago.
Right.
So it's like, it sounds really bad, but that's still higher than it was before. So it's like, it's really hard for me and that would be a 90% is a crash. It's a full scale crash. It's not even a correction.
Sure. Yeah.
And yet would still be higher than before.
Yeah, those sayings are kind of funny. It's sort of like the serial killer was good most of the time. You know?
Yeah.
99% of the time he was great.
Yeah.
And
that's
that 1% is.
Yeah. The premise, though, I totally understand it. Like and also some of these other comments touch on it as well. So I'll grab this one. Mr. LAGN says, one point is that once people have other things to spend on, very true. Less money was spent on cards. Here's the thing, though. There's nothing wrong with that. For a lot of us collectors, good. In fact, don't spend the money on cards now.
Right.
Start imagining, start saving for that vacation. Take the money out of the hobby. Take it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt us in any way. Like, why would I care? Now, I've operated under the idea that, look, if the prices are going to keep going up, well, then I've got some stuff that you guys can have this stuff then. I'll take the cash. Now, if the prices drop, well, then great. Then I guess I'll go shopping.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. There's one way or another to do what you can. Now, if you have to have the latest and greatest, you have to open some product, then these are tough times. These are very tough times for you.
It's also a situation where, when the bubble bursts, because I don't think it's sustainable to keep going. I know all the sneaker flippers have come over, but maybe it is, you sell a few things, and if you want them back, you wait till it crashes and you buy it back cheaper later.
For certain cards, I think that will be possible. For some other ones, that's why I say I never give one prescription across the board. I don't say 100% for anything. However, for some cards, you will definitely be able to do that. That will be a very real tactic that will be available to you where you can have your cake and eat it too and get a cake next month.
Right.
So it's like, this sounds great. Free cake,
Don't tell your dad.
Yeah, exactly. Carlos Senior will be thrilled. Free cake is like literally what he lives for. But the thing is that possibly will be there. But I think there's some folks who are taking this to the ultimate conclusion, assuming that will be across the board. It's like, no, there'll be certain cards that will probably hold their value. Because some of them had room to move, and now they have. And some of them will be like, oh, it was $100,000. That's going to come and drop. Yeah, maybe it drops to like 80.
Right.
And a year ago, it was 5. So it's still not, it didn't come all the way back for you. It came back some, but $20,000 is a lot, but it didn't come back far enough. If you were waiting for it to come back to 5, you might be out of luck. It depends on the card. It depends on the item. It depends on the card.
Hard market to call.
Yeah. That's why I don't try to predict. There's a lot of us that have enough understanding of the market to be able to make educated guesses. Guesses based on it. But there's one factor that every single one of these prognosticators runs into that I keep laughing at them because it's like the problem is you're relying on market fundamentals. You're relying on a rational market. Where's the rationality in a lot of people, the way they spend their money? You can't control the X factor. If somebody is hell-bent on spending this money, then that market goes up. It doesn't matter whether there's any fundamentals to it. It doesn't have to make sense. If they're throwing money into it, it doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not. Right. So you're trying to calculate based on rationality where there isn't rationality. You're going to be wrong.
True enough.
Yeah. So
True
don't
enough.
don't try to project the future that way. It's a very difficult thing to do. My recommendation, and I've planned out a video to this effect. I'm going to use an example, like a case study of like one strategy I'm using with one of the players I'm collecting. But the caveat right at the beginning is going to be like, I am flexible enough where if the conditions change, I will do a 180 on this strategy. That's the plan based on what I'm seeing today. If things change, I got to change the plan. I can't stick to the plan because the conditions have changed. So don't
Yep.
get locked into for sure it's going to be like this. This is the way. This is what I'm going to do. And then conditions change and you keep going. And it's like, no, conditions have changed. Reevaluate. Hold on. Stop for 2 seconds. Figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, there's too many people that are locked in. That's all I'm saying about that is that they're locked in. And enough people do that and they're just blind. They're going to walk right off a cliff. It's going to be like that the Apple commercial, the Apple Super Bowl commercial, the famous one where people walk off a cliff. It's going to be one of those deals.
Yeah.
You don't want to be one of those folks. So Jeff here says it's been 4 months since he put in a shipment request for Comc. Still no words have been shipped. So I want to talk about it in a second because Mr. Jeremy is going to be interviewing the Comc CEO on Saturday.
Oh.
That's going to be fun.
Again?
We're going to have some fun with that in a second here. And Hockey is referencing it here. So we're going to have some fun. So what's up, everyone? Hope you're having a great night. Thank you for leaf cards. Apparently, Ekblad got a serious injury. Yeah.
Yeah, it was stretchered off, I heard.
Oh, that is serious. Okay.
Yeah.
Junk Wax will go back to being Junk Wax. I think there'll be a poll.
I believe that.
I think there's a real possibility. Yeah. It's going to be a numbers game, right? It's going to be a math problem. They're going to realize, oh, wait, you've slapped all this stuff. You opened all this product and there's still cases and cases of it. Yes. They made a lot of it.
Yes.
It's just hiding in somebody's basement.
You might see dollar boxes will have slabs in the future.
That's the junk slab era concept, and that's a possibility. Like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it honestly
Yeah.
is. So So here, so Huggy says I think he's being a little cheeky, and I like it. So there are gatekeepers that only allow positivity only. Correct. Okay. So let me have a little fun with this, because I'm interested, and I was chatting on kind of a text thread with some other collectors as well, talking about this a little bit. And one of the frustrations is going to be that I laughed because I said, if it was me advising, now Jeremy's got his show and he's got to run his show his way and he's got to do it the way he's comfortable with. Right now, with how frustrated people are with Comc, because I've felt that frustration. I've talked to enough collectors who are super frustrated. Honestly, I would have done a pre-record. I would have done a pre-recorded and just uploaded it to the channel. I wouldn't have done it live. I think you don't have a mod. You might want to get one because you're gonna have to start blocking people because a bunch of them are gonna have very mean-spirited questions. It's just reality. I think Mike was having a connection problem. I noticed that.
There will be some negativity blown on.
Yeah, well then I think that's where Jeremy is gonna have to be really selective what he reads. He's gonna have to pre-read before he says the words. He's gonna have to look at
the comments down.
Here's the thing though, like there's almost no I'm saying this seriously. I'm being completely serious with this. If I was advising them, you do what you want. It's your channel, your business. If you want to do this, have your questions, pre-record it, and do like a premiere. You can still have the chat, hang out in the chat and comment there. It won't be live. Tim Gesh could be over in his house sleeping during that time. But doing it live is going to be a very tricky thing to do.
So why do you think he chose to have him on at this time? That's an interesting thing that you would do.
It's a relevant person to speak to, though. Like, people have the question. Like, it makes sense to have him on. I'm just saying the venue in the live format might be really tricky to pull off right now.
That's what I'm saying right now. Why have him on right now? There's a lot of people, and I know your frustration from what you went through, and there's a couple other people as well.
Yeah. And I like to try to think that I'm reasonably rational when it comes to a lot of these things, where I have a lot more patience than a lot of people that I'll hear express that frustration. I understand it, but I also will not give excuses. Yeah. It's not my place to give them excuses. They have had plenty of time, and there's almost nothing that can be said that will come off well. I think Jeremy alluded to him having an announcement of some kind. Unless your announcement is that you're going to step down and have somebody else take over, like I don't know what you're going to say that is going to make anybody happy.
What can you?
No, but like I'll tell you two things prediction time. We're hiring more people. We know that. Number two,
Everybody's hiring new people.
We bought it. Yeah, exactly. We've gotten additional space to be able to do our thing more effectively. Congratulations. That doesn't help me from the last year.
You, PSA, everybody. Okay.
Yeah. So like
So what's new?
but that's what I'm trying to get at. So if either one of
Nothing.
those are the announcement, what does that do for you?
Nothing. Put you in the same boat as PSA. Put you in the same boat as everybody else who's frustrated.
Yeah. There is nothing you can say there that will help. So it's like
there's no there.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, it's not a bad thing to get some communication. That's why I say, like, you could do a pre-recorded interview and say what you need to say and at least have it out there, and that's okay. You can do that. And then that would probably be, honestly, you could probably get it done in an hour. You could have a tighter version of the show and just pre-record it.
It might satisfy the people a little better too.
A couple of folks, I think so. So quickly I'm going through. Hot button issue, very much so. I just want to make sure I get caught up here in these comments here. Ton of pissed off people in the chat. Yes. That's why I say, like, the chat is going to be a bit toxic for it. BT Sports Cars, maybe Team Master with the opportunity. That's very possible. That's very possible. So Jeremy does skip over comments. Yeah. No, I'm not saying he doesn't skip over comments. I'm saying it would be very difficult to pull it off. Because if you get so many, it's like, okay, how many do you skip? Do you skip like 10 before you get to something that isn't like, that isn't so contentious? It's like, you can't use those words, that kind of thing. So it's going to be very difficult. Yep, that's right. That's right. And I'll see if I can pull it up. I can show you guys something also that I saw recently that is also going to play into that. So definitely. CEOs read from the same script. Yep. 4-leaf card said, wait 4.5 months for the last shipment and pull the rest for the first week of January. Still waiting. Yep. Oh, here we go. Mike's there. Power shut off and back on. No worries. No worries. Not a problem, Mike. Take it easy. Yeah. And it's one of those things where on this one, he's definitely going to have to skip comments. I can't blame him. I'm not going to knock him for it. He's going to have to. It's just reality. Now, what I want to do is I'll pull this up because I think Bowman 1951 on YouTube mentioned this, and I will see if I can find it. I want to see if I can get... So PWCC has its consignment service that they do through eBay. And in the same vein, from a production standpoint, they've been having trouble getting the stuff out quickly enough. Now, really? eBay, we don't have the same tolerance. eBay, we don't have the same. We got a little thing called the negative.
Yes.
And sellers can get that. So I want to see if I can find it. You guys will have to give me a minute. I'll try to see if I can find it for you. If I can show you what the feedback rating looks like.
Are they having issues with employees or space or shutdowns? Are they really affected by it?
Everybody's having that issue, right? So it's like, the thing is, and this is kind of where I hold the line and I say as clearly as I can. I'll take the mantle of the reasonable individual who understands the way business works. We understand, but it's not an excuse. Because one of the analogies that we use, and I've mentioned it before, Burbank Sports Cards has like 40 million cards or something ridiculous. They got a gigantic warehouse of cards. They actually had to shut down for COVID. Someone tested positive.
Oh.
And they got a warehouse and everything. But you know what happened?
Nope.
They went in, sanitized things, got the person quarantined, got their staff tested, got all that done. And then as soon as it was possible, they immediately reopened the doors, got everybody in, masks, whatever, gloves, whatever you got to do, get back to work and send stuff out.
Okay.
And barely missed a beat with 40 million cards.
Online, yeah. They do
online business, all of it.
Huge.
Yeah. So they do a ton of business. I bought plenty of stuff from them, and even though it's Canada, even though it's across the border and it takes time, I still get my stuff, and I get it way faster than anything Comc's ever done, and the shipping that I pay is way less.
Sure, yeah, they're pretty good.
So it's like I said, it isn't my job to pump their tires here and give them all the praise, but they're doing what I've asked them to do: get me the stuff within a reasonable time period. Yeah. And they've got plenty of warehouse space, and they have a million ways they could screw up. They could send you the wrong thing. They could forget something. Like, there's a million ways they could screw up. And they manage. They're not perfect, but for the most part, they manage.
Do a really good job. I think I bought something from them last month. Yeah, I bought one card. Boom, here, no problem.
They've got so much inventory. There's a real possibility if you're collecting sets or players or things, there's a good chance they've got something in their inventory. That's why I say, like, I have the opportunity to test them throughout this whole period, buying different times. And for the most part, they've been reasonably good at getting my stuff to me in a reasonable time period. I can't complain. No better or worse, really, than a lot of other sellers I've dealt with. No. So I think the people dismiss any negativity must have the attitude. Yep. No, that's fair. I got you. I understand the cops need negative comments, but people can let this can't just let stuff sit there. Yes, yes. For flipping, I agree with you 100%.
That's big.
But if I'm a collector though, and I actually want my stuff, then it doesn't help me that it's digitally there. It is digitally inside of my sandbox, so to speak. I can theoretically look at pictures of it anytime I want. No, I actually want my stuff. I want physical possession of my stuff.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you ever go back to Comc?
I still buy stuff on Comc, but generally I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for certain things that are either more difficult to come by, where they happen to have a seller happens to have it, or it's really well priced. Like if the price on an item happens to be really good and it comes up, I'm like, oh, awesome, great. Let me get my hands on this.
Well, didn't you put stuff up on there too to trade off for other stuff that you were trying to get? Or
Well, I bought stuff on there and then put it back on with a better because I've never
I
sent
gotcha.
anything to ComC to
Oh,
process,
okay.
but I've bought stuff and flipped it on there on the platform.
Gotcha.
So if that's your objective, it's still good because
Yeah.
then you're not worried about the shipping part.
It's there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all digital and
I gotcha.
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where you try to then get at your stuff. To physically possess it is where we run into a problem because they have to ship it to you.
And especially in COVID time, I guess everybody's not working. They maybe need some money back from their cards, and it takes 3 months, and everybody's upset about that, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's another factor too. The processing time to get the stuff into the system is also a little bit slow as well. And you just have to imagine though, like say you're Canadian and you send it to the Canadian office. So they do the processing, and then the warehouse though is in the States. So they have to get their stuff to the States. So there's another delay. And this whole time, like you've created this, two-headed monster, but you also don't maintain a lot of inventory in the Canadian side. And you can't do too much because if a US buyer buys it and you have to get it from the Canadian warehouse or vice versa, same problem. For
double shipment, try to come. Yeah, I got it.
It's I'm not downplaying the complexity. I'm just saying that you designed your business this way. You have to understand that that's an issue that you're going to run into.
Great business model. I'll give them credit for that.
It was for a long time. I bet the catalog said by how much they receive it. So you order 8 cars from set. Yep. Yeah. I know that there was a podcast interview they did with Burbank himself, where he said that at one point they redid their organizational structure. Which is what I thought was fascinating because he was explaining this in a little bit of detail, which was really cool. I was interested. He said they realized that they couldn't scale the way they wanted to if they didn't change their way. And he put it exactly this way. He says, I need to be able to set this up in a way where it only takes an afternoon to train somebody and they can find anything in the warehouse. It needs to make sense so that I only spend a couple of hours training you and you're able to find anything that I ask you to go find. Which makes sense. That's logical.
Well, that's the ultimate thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So then you're not spending too much time training, and you're able to put the person on the floor to start working almost immediately, and they can go get the stuff, and they're fairly accurate and good.
If we get PSA to do that, we're rocking.
Well, PSA gets 500,000 cards a week so that's there's a lot of volume going on there.
And how many million does Burbank have?
I think they say like 40 odd million cards, but a lot of it they already have, right? Like they bought it
by these containers.
Yeah. So it's at least there. Yeah.
Just stocking it back. They must have a great system.
Yep, exactly. 50 more shippers. Yep. No, I believe it. And that's one of those challenges. Yeah. Inventory management, but it's one of those things where I think ComC though, I think they established whatever their processes are, whatever their organizational structure is, or whatever the case is. I don't think it's changed. Which in a way is good because right now it would be difficult to change it mid-flight right now. But on the other hand, if it wasn't built to scale, now that is another bottleneck for you. Mm-hmm. So in addition, what happened? Yeah. So here, yeah, altered organization. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, built to scale is the key word because we got to maintain up to 100 million cars, so we have to have room to grow.
Correct. So, and that's always what happens is that
big scale.
ComC though has had years to have had multiple opportunities to do that. Where at one point that's really Tim's job at the end of the day, where he vision wise, he goes, if this business becomes big enough, someday this warehouse is going to become unmanageable. Even if I don't have the answer, I need to ask somebody who can come up with an answer for me. as the owner of the thing, you have to understand what you don't know and go like, one day this is too complicated and I might have a problem. And then start adapting. That's why I say I give credit to Burbank because he came to that realization apparently years ago and started making the, because could you imagine what it would have taken? I don't know if they were even running the shop when they were doing that, because they might have had to close it for a couple of days to be like, we got to reorganize and reshuffle all the decks here. Everybody do, you
Probably a
grab those
week.
boxes, you grab those boxes, you grab those boxes. We got to, but once you do it, once it's done, if it's logically structured, you are scalable.
Yeah.
You can keep having cards come in, cards go out, cards come in for years. Then you're good to go. Shining the light on StarStock, they advertise their business having limited pain points, and now they're a pain point as well. Yes. No, absolutely. Everybody who operates a similar model, because I mentioned when
Card
StarStock
Ladder, all these other companies that get too much volume, they can't handle it.
Yeah.
Or they don't have enough to handle. Like I'm just saying, Card Ladder. I'm like putting him down. Just saying, he's done he's basketball, but where's the hockey? Where's the football? Where's the other sports?
That's right.
When are we going to get them?
And the StarStock thing, when originally StarStock came out and people started asking about StarStock, my answer was a very simple one. I said, it feels like a marriage between Comc and basically like a fractional share model, because it's like a day trading thing combined with like a Comc model where the stuff is there. But you don't get to see the individual cards. They've got a structure to it. They added the grading element to it. Like they've got certain things on it. But as soon as it became something where they needed to scale, they have the exact same problem Comc does. If they're going to ship the stuff to you, you have to control a warehouse. You have to get the stuff. You have to get it shipped out. You have to have a shipping department. And they're relatively new. They got some seed money and stuff, but it's like, that's not going to fix the problem if you weren't ready to scale. And everybody has to be ready to scale in the card market today, especially if you're coming in now.
I think their scale got surpassed by what they thought they were needed to handle. And the amount of business they got was probably surprising to them. And they went, ooh, we thought we were going to get this much, and it went this high, and now they're having a hard time.
Yeah, and the other thing, though, is that StarStock tried to limit it because they stuck to rookie cards. So they thought by scaling it into a specific category, it would reduce the, and it did to a certain point, but then you're still got the same problem. If rookie cards start moving in mass, which they were going to, and somebody actually has the audacity to actually want physical possession of the item, as long as it stays in the platform, you're good to go. It's the same as Comc. If nobody ever asked for their cards, this would not be an issue. But people do want their cards. Some that buy this stuff actually want physical possession of the item. And as soon as that happens, now we've got a problem. Now your shipping department comes under heat because they got to do stuff.
All these companies that started, they're based on high maintenance, high volume. It's very hard to run high maintenance stuff.
Well, you can just imagine, though. Think like a company like that. We always joke about it, but card collectors, you've got card collectors out there that have 100,000 cards, 200,000 cards, 500,000, a million cards, like the extreme examples. Collectors. Now imagine a company that has a platform where they do tens of millions of cards. They need a warehouse. Well, now, okay, cool. Here's the warehouse. Bobby, go find me, card 311 from 1973 Topps. Could you go get that?
And put it in this guy's bin.
And you do multiple sports. And Comc also has the element that they also have to track whose account it's in, because it's specific copies, right? It's not just, it's got to be the specific card. Because if it's serial numbered and it's supposed to be this one and you get a different one, you just took it out of somebody else's bin, you got a problem.
Yeah. So do they physically move it every time, or do they move it after a certain point? And it's just a digital move.
It should be a digital move in theory. In theory, it should be some kind of barcode, because they do have barcodes.
Yeah, but then they have to,
they have to go to the right section for the right set, for the right sport, for the right whatever, and pull the right barcode.
I got to pull the right Joe Sakic that I have 5 million of.
In a nutshell, the complication right there. That is the complication. No matter how you sort it, you're going to have a problem. It's a very difficult thing to do. So here, I'll just read Hockey Guy's comment here. Most of the company haven't thought about scaling up quickly or when set up for the tidal wave they eventually knew would come, especially these newer companies like StarStock. Yep. Now, the thing, though, is Comc is not new. That's particularly the reason why it's more egregious for them, because they've been around for, I think, 10 years or longer.
But, yeah, I understood, but I don't think anybody, like he said, the volume of business was is unprecedented, and I don't think these guys are ready. Although card ladder kind of started earlier.
Yeah.
Not so much earlier,
Yeah.
but 10 years ago, yeah, you think you see it was kind of business as usual for Comc because, hey, the hobby we're maintaining, and then bam,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, we can't handle this.
But the thing though is before that BAM that you're talking about, the thing had been scaling up for the previous 12 months before that. It's like this
I
idea
get
that
it. I understand.
the last 12 to 18 months has been accelerated, but it was growing prior to that month by month. So it's one of those things where even if it had kept going at that rate, at
Yeah.
this stage, it would be maybe double what the previous was. So you still have to scale up. You still had to be in a position to be able to handle it.
Well, I guess the foresight at that time would be that, oh, we can handle this. This okay, things are going up. We'll just and then slam. And I think it's a rude awakening
That's
for a
right.
lot of these companies.
Yep. So here, I'll grab a couple of these here. Slabs are hard to move star stock, so I want to move them off to the platform, but wait at least a month. Yep. So I'll grab this one here. Market Movers has no issues. They also have more capitalization. Jeff Wilson, he's a businessman. So he already had basically they've got a team. And what happens is Card Ladder is really good with the marketing. They're really good with, being personable, but you're literally dealing with a startup. You want to know who's in Card Ladder? You see them on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the company. No, it's two people inputting,
and plus,
but then you've got Josh working that end of it with the developers for the platform, and then you've got his brother working the media.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not a lot of people. I can't name you all the people at Market Movers, but I promise there's a lot more people involved in the inputting, customer service. Jeff is the person in the front, but he's not the one actually doing the stuff. He has people for that. So as they did that, he built it like a business. He's like, I need you guys to do development. I need you guys to input this stuff. I need you to be customer service and take this information and do this, then the other thing. It's structured like a business, which is understandable, but that's going to make it a lot easier to scale up because you've got the people to physically scale. But that requires money. You got to get the money. So let's quickly go here. The company was trying to adapt to increasing growth, and they got hit by limitations due to COVID. Hit by tsunami business right after they had the proverbial levee break. Yeah, but it's been a year. Like they're not going to get off the hook for
tsunami is the right one, hockey.
It is a very apt description, but they're not going to be allowed off the hook for it. No. It's been a year. I'd rather Market Movers be overwhelmed than adding 100 cards a day. Yeah.
Well, when you're so deep in it, it's so hard to get out.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, like, I've seen hockey's 90. The thing is, there's hockey guy and hockey. I have to try to keep it straight.
Yeah,
so hockey. He gets bad about it. The thing is, the hockey 99 here. It's like, don't use Card Ladder. Like, I'm not here to sell you on either product, but don't use Card Ladder. And because they're going to have that scalability problem. You already know that. And it's not going to change. Unless they have enough of it. Basically, and I've kicked around this idea or in discussion with folks offline, not the Card Ladder folks specifically, because they know this part. The reality is this. If they don't get a influx of capital, they will never be able to scale. Because they're going to need to hire more analysts, period, full stop. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to need to hire them. You're going to need to train them, and they're going to have to input stuff, and you're going to have to increase the rate at which the database gets bigger. It has to be. Otherwise, you will grow at this steady thing. And right now, they're very heavily in the basketball side of things. So from a basketball perspective, you do have a lot of profiles that you can use. You want to look up LeBron? There's a bunch of LeBron cards. Luka, you're probably good to go. But the other sports, you're a little light. Market Movers is going to have more of that. They did add the free option. For a while, they were more expensive. They were smart to add a free option. But it's one of those things where it depends. And here's the thing. If you don't really have a use for the tool, I can save you some money. Don't buy either. Mm-hmm. If you don't need the tool, don't use it, right? There are free options, right? There are ways of looking up eBay completed auction listings, stuff like that. They're free. So you're not required to do either. So here, Luke says, Card Ladder has added so many great features. Scanning technology, yep. Josh is full-time with it. So it's still going to come down to scalability, though. And like I said, I like the Card Ladder guys. I use the product. I subscribe to the service. For the cards that I am looking at, it is useful to have that context. But if it's not worth the $15 to you, I'll save you $15. Don't buy it. I always try to be very upfront about that.
If you don't drive a car, don't buy one.
Yeah, if you don't want it, don't buy it. So
simple stuff.
Yep. Market Movers does card ladder features. Yep. Uh huh. Well, it depends. I've watched the progression of the two of them. They've both copied each other. I've seen Market Movers copy. Market Movers has copied some of those features.
Plagiarism.
Yeah, they did it. They did. Hockey is being selective with his memory. I've watched Market Movers copy features the other way around too.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they're in competition. They're supposed to copy each other's.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen. And they're going to keep doing it. By the way, it'll keep happening. Just depends on what you're watching. Comc isn't in the weeds; they're in the middle of the jungle. Yep.
Beckett's going to copy me again.
Probably, yeah.
How about?
You'll know when they released a new one. When they release a new one, it's like this is the new copy of the Burrell. Wait, Beckett. No, wait. It's like, you even copied the. You even copied. There was an old meme, like a joke, where somebody did such a bad job of cheating on a test that they even copied the person's name at the top.
Person's name.
That'll be what it is.
Yep.
So good evening, 90s hockey collector. How many subscription growth rate can these companies possibly have over time? No way to know, really. Honestly, it doesn't. It matters and it doesn't, because subscription. The thing with subscription growth is that is steady income, right? The more subscriptions you have, that means you have more steady income. That increases the likelihood and possibility. Because this is what you have to look at, and that's why I keep trying to give a contrast of the two. They're both technically startups, but Market Movers was better capitalized at the outset. Like, it was more capitalized because it was from somebody who already had businesses. So he had some funds to be able to capitalize it right away. So I promise you, on day one, Market Movers had more analysts, period, from day one. And it was probably a money loser at the very beginning. But then as it got critical mass, it was able to quickly, break even and then make some money. And we don't know if there's maybe some, because he's, as a businessman, he buys equity stake in businesses. That's one way he makes money as well as a businessman. There could be some other deals as well where he does business deals with other platforms and companies and things. And if you're doing all that, you've got other sources of revenue, because Market Movers is one aspect of the business now. They've got the media side of it where they're doing certain things. They actually do grading. They're doing grading submissions. So that's another avenue.
Helps.
Yes. So
that's smart.
So they've got a bunch of these little things. But don't think of Market Movers. Think of Sports Card Investor as Sports Card Investor Inc.
Yeah.
It's a company. Market Movers is one vertical of a variety of verticals. That's why I say, like, if you can generate more income, then you have the ability to scale. You can hire more people. You can do all these things. Yes. It makes sense. It really does.
Yeah. Those extra little things are the bread and butter, and the main business is the engine. Yeah. So it's perfect.
If Jeff needs somebody right now, he can put out an ad and hire somebody. That's what you want to have. And because a lot of the work they're doing is online and stuff, they can do it virtually. They don't have to have somebody in house. Of course, it might be nice to have somebody that works near the office, but it's not necessary. It depends on the type of job.
Is Card Ladder searching for some investors?
I genuinely have no idea. That's one of the
I haven't seen that. Yeah.
I don't think they'd publicize it, to be honest with you. If I was going to guess, I don't think they'd publicize it unless it was something that was like imminent.
It's a small hobby. Really?
Yeah, exactly. So here, it depends on how much people value them. Yep. As long as people find them useful, there's just some growth. Yep. So imitation is the greatest compliment. And one important thing we want to say as well, we don't know how many subscribers they have. We have no idea. We know that Josh has gone full time, which is to say that he felt there was enough in it for him to go full time. But again, he's one of the founding members of it already. So it's not like a new hire. It's just like, okay, so there's enough work for me to do here to justify me putting all my time into it. I would suspect that at this point they're probably profitable, but it's not like so hugely profitable that, like, otherwise you go hire more people. I promise you there would be some more analysts in there if there was enough money in it for it.
Oh, that's an interesting comment. Imitation is the greatest compliment.
Yeah, it is. That's the old saying.
It's a saying. And all sayings aren't facts.
Are you not flattered, Bobby? Are you not flattered?
No. Why would I be flattered? Mm-hmm. If I did all the work and somebody just copies it and takes it, that's not flattery.
You'll be flattered when the next copy of the Burrell comes out. It's like, wait, I didn't release this.
Kid going, oh, you stole it all. No, I don't even think they really care about that part of the hobby anyhow. So I kind of have my own road, but they did take the changes that I did for the cards the short prints that I added, the rookie years I changed on a few cards. There was quite a few changes, and they caught them the very next month.
Yeah. I don't
Publication.
think this is a conversation that is probably worth having another day. I really
Gotcha.
don't think that Beckett, I really don't think that Beckett, I don't think any of the guide stuff is a money driver anymore. I just
No.
don't think there's money in it, really. Like in all honesty, like in all seriousness, I don't think there's that much money in it for them because because now this is the third owner. Beckett
Mhm.
sold to a company or a group that then has sold it. And I'll still get calls all the time from like Beckett. It's like, oh, would you like to add these? No, don't bother me. If I want the thing, I'll subscribe to it. I don't because I use the online price guide to keep my Medano checklist so I can have like a veg because on some of the cards that don't have a lot of movement, don't have a ton of sales and stuff, the price if it's not a rare card, the price
Yeah.
is not out of whack. It's within reason.
Understood.
But on a rare piece, you're not even going to get close. But for those other like mid tier cards, it's fine. The number is fine. But what happens is that when you subscribe to it even for a little while, then once you have it for a bit and you drop it off because like okay I don't need it for the moment, even if for the season or whatever, sometimes I'll turn it on and turn it off seasonally depending on what I'm doing.
Mhm.
They'll call you and say, oh, would you like to resubscribe? We can give you a discount. No,
Mm.
if I wanted it I would stay subscribed, but I don't know how much money they're making on that subscription side. So going back to the subscription model side, I don't know how much money is being made.
Mhm.
It's really just the database. Now the listings are still useful, but you can get a lot of that for free. So you don't even need to pay for that. So people that don't pay for that are not generating revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know how much money that's making is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know how many books they're selling at this stage or even magazines. I don't think it's enough.
No, I don't think it's enough.
I think it's a very expensive hobby for them right now. I would suspect some of the other aspects of the business are probably where the money's coming from. Even the grading side of it, as much trouble as they're having with that. I would
Yeah.
bet it makes more money than the print side.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So I can see a lot of collectors who wouldn't touch a service like those. Yep. No, we got you, Sanderson Doro. We got the gist of it. But I had a little fun with Bobby.
No, that's okay.
With Bobby. But it's,
I just wanted to be actual and factual with it.
I get
It's it's a great saying and it does work, but not for everything.
I get you. So yeah. So when is Bobby going to write a book on the year 2020?
I don't know.
That could be the thing. Is if somebody did write a story on the year 2020 in the hobby, there would be some stories to tell. I have no doubt there would be stories to tell.
I think you can write a whole series of books.
So what we need is Ken Burns 2020 in the hobby. We need the multi-part series.
Yes.
Just imagine. Yeah, exactly.
Beckett calls you, what year is this? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The database. Yeah, I would say the database is still useful, although I found plenty of mistakes in that database. Like they've messed up a bunch of stuff. There are cards in like parallels and subsets, I think, that don't exist.
That's the part. Yeah. So I don't go there, and that's where it does get complicated. And I give them credit. I've always given Beckett credit for maintaining the lists that they do past, let's say in the 2000s up. Otherwise, prior to that, different game.
Absolutely. So let me quickly grab this one here. PMN says, do you think the rookie cards of former players like Eisenman and Shanahan are benefited by this just as general managers? I agree with Hockey Guy. Nope. If they were successful, like super successful, although Eisenman has had a little bit of success.
They're not finished either.
No, for sure. But I'm saying Eisenman, I think, has had more success than Shanahan. Mind you, if Shanahan is able to build it, because I think Shanahan's working in Toronto, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's say Shanahan finds a way to build a roster and the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup.
He's huge.
It would be a boost. It would be a boost. I can guarantee that. It would have to be something like that, though. In all honesty, it would have to be something like that.
Yeah.
So good evening, Yannick. Here. Somebody has to write about this card book for future generations. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody takes a stab at it. At least an ebook or something. I bet like an ebook could be done. You could self-publish an ebook. You could put something together, I think. It doesn't have to be traditional publishing because I don't know what the market would be for traditional. But an ebook, you could get that done, I would think.
Or you could just have a show.
You could, but I'm talking about like a synopsis of the specifics of the year and talking to different people about it and fleshing out a little bit of the background. I think
we could do that in a show.
I don't think you could do it in one show, Bobby.
No.
You would need a few shows.
You have a lot of shows.
I have a lot of shows, yes.
There's a lot of people out there having shows, so you can do this through that.
It'll be YouTube Rewind, but hobby version, just clips from everybody's
Yeah.
YouTube videos.
Basically, that would be
Yeah.
great.
All right. So a conversation of business, very interesting. Run a business. Absolutely. In general, small companies struggle because lack of experience and capital. Yes. And the capital one is the specific one I'm talking about. Now, lack of experience is a good point as well. Absolutely a good point. But capital in this case, I think is going to be the big one for a bunch of these startups because it's this, do you have enough money? You have a vision. You don't actually know how much it's going to cost. You have a vague notion, but then it's like, do you have the capital to pay for that? Once reality sets in, it's like, actually, it's going to cost this much. Do you have that with you?
We'll get investors by then. Don't worry.
But that's what happens with a lot of startups is they're hoping that the day will come that the money will be there. And it's like, well, then you have to hang in long enough for that to work. And it might take a while. So it's tricky. I'm not saying yes or I'm not saying no. I'm saying it's tricky.
And it's tricky now because we went through a year of exponential growth. And is that growth still going to be there in the next 6-8 months when things get sort of back to normal?
Mhm.
And a year after, post-COVID, are things going to be driving up, or are other people going to be doing things? I think somebody else said a question about that in the thing there. And these are the things we really don't know. Will it keep driving, going through the roof? I don't think it can. I think certain things aren't sustainable.
Mhm.
And I don't see the marketplace going up, up, up. On the higher tier cards, I could say yes easily to that, but everything else below that, I don't know.
Well,
Tough
so
call.
that point that you just made, I touched on that on one of the live streams when I was talking about like PSA. And specifically what I was referring to is that are they hiring more people? Yes. Do I think they're going to hire enough people to meet the surge demand? No, I don't believe they will because it's actually a bad business move to try to hire for the maximum, for like the worst case scenario. You're better off being a little short. Now, you don't want to be way short. You want a little short is okay. You basically want to your PSA's job right now is to calculate a pullback. They say, okay, if we're correct and there's a pullback, but the pullback doesn't go all the way to the old levels, you are going to need more people than you had before,
Sure.
but not all the way to the current levels that you might need. So you're not looking for 2020, 2021. You're looking at 2024, 2025 and saying, what does it look like out there? And you want to hire kind of for that. Because then if demand comes back down, you're still okay. You don't have a bunch of people twiddling their thumbs doing nothing. That's what you don't want that. You want them working. But you don't want to hire so many people that, okay, we've taken care of today. By the way, a bunch of you are laid off because demand just went down 20%.
So by 2025, are they going to start grading those virtual cards too?
We can grade the pictures.
Yes, we could.
We could slab them.
That looks like a 10, and that's literally what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
No, it looks like a 10.
Could you imagine if you had a digital picture and it's like, that looks like a 9.5 to me.
Yeah.
It's a picture. It's a little fuzzy. Clean your monitor.
They send it to PSA and they bring it back, and that picture has the graded thing. That's perfect. It's right in the case.
I would legitimately
Told you it was a 9.5.
I would legitimately love it if some people like got like 9s and 8s. That would be wonderful. I would enjoy it.
Well, you didn't crop it properly. See, that's why you only got a 9.
The centering on it was bad. The centering on the picture was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me grab here.
We might be onto something though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are your guys' opinions? Okay. So let me touch on this one here from Hockey. So yes, but if you don't have to hire them at all, it's even easier. It's like I get his point here.
It's not like business is slowing down for them.
But the thing is, like, literally, you don't even have to. You don't even have to bother. Just don't hire them.
Yeah.
Don't even bother. You can hire just enough to be like, yeah, we need to meet some of this demand, but not all of it. That's what I say. Like, I'm not saying PSA cares about firing people. I'm saying, you know what saves you time and not having to bother with it? Don't. Just hire enough people to be like, yeah, we need a little more for sure. Because if demand stays higher later, we still need more for sure. And we need this additional space. So that's why they bought the additional space, because they will need it. It will be useful in the future. So the expansion is required, but they're not going to expand to the level to completely meet the current issue. They will expand enough where when things recede, it'll still be fine, because they don't want to have.
It's not like a production factory where they can hire extra workers just to catch up.
Correct. You want them in because the problem is, if you were just hiring them to like ship boxes or something, that's one thing. But if you're hiring graders, You're training them. So here's the thing about the firing or not, whatever. Yeah, ruthless. Great. That's not the point. The point is that then you waste time training them. For what? That's still time. That's company time. That's you're paying them literally to sit in training. No, if we hire just enough, then I still want you here only because it's like, well, then you're useful to me. If you're the box shipping guy, well, then yeah, I'll fire all of you. If I don't need you anymore, then yeah, you're gone.
True.
Didn't Comc say you have the East Coast warehouse? I haven't heard anything to it, but maybe that's the announcement. Like that's what I'm saying. Like maybe the announcement is like a facility thing. Like that was one of the two things I said that could be one of them. I don't think it's going to help right
You
away.
heard it on Carlos's first.
But it's such an easy prediction to make. That's what made it funny. It's like there's two things I could imagine you saying. Two things. Those are my two top guesses. Maybe you come out of left field and come up with something else, but those are my two top guesses. Either A, you saying you hired even more people than you already announced on the website, it's right at the top, or number two, you're saying you got another warehouse. But the problem is, will that fix my problem right now? No.
The warehouse won't fix the problem, so I
No.
don't see.
It'll take like 6 months, 3 to 6 months a year for that to matter. So it's like that's not going to fix anything today. So like, good to know.
I think that's the question everyone would ask. So you got another warehouse. So what does that help me with?
Well, great. That's what I'm saying. Like, I hope that's not the announcement because that would be like, well, that's not going to help. That's why I say like, do the pre-record.
Yes.
If that's your announcement, do a press release. Just do that. God. Just do a press release. It's fine. So here, Hockey Huggy says, I hope a disgruntled parent quits and tells the tell-all. What are they going to tell you that's going to matter? I'm saying this in seriousness. Like in seriousness, what are they going to say that's going to matter?
That's true.
They took your cards and threw them around like a frisbee. What are you going to do about it?
Nothing.
And nothing.
Yeah. You are under the thumb of somebody.
Yeah. And realistically, anybody that has like good information, NDA.
There you go.
You probably, if you're somebody who has like knowledge, if you're working on the warehouse floor, that's one thing, but nobody's going to want to hear from you anyway. It's not going to matter. But anybody who has like knowledge of operations and whatever, we got a package for you, but you're going to sign one of these.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Because in theory, let's say you're good at your job, whatever the case is, and you are a higher up or whatever. Well, Beckett could hire you. Yeah. SGC could hire you, like maybe one of the other ones, CSG, whatever. Because the CSG guys were former Beckett graders, right?
You got that right too, so CSG.
Yeah, it took me a bunch of tries. Like it takes me a bunch of tries. I keep forgetting the sequence of those letters with those guys.
I always remember the S's in the middle.
Yeah, but it's not natural for me yet because it's still too new for me. It hasn't really resonated with me yet. So I didn't ignore your comment, PMN, but there were a couple of comments I wanted to hit on. So I'll read this one here. So what are you guys' opinion of KSA cards? My impression is a lot of questionable trim cards end up there. Are they still a legit third-party option for high-end cards? I'm going to say no. Do they have some legit cards? Yes. Can you find some nice cards in KSA holders? Yes. Is my opinion of them high? No. I think their holders are kind of crap. Do you want to add anything to that, Bobby, as KSA?
I know Nathan too well. I'll just leave it alone.
Yeah. But does anything that I just threw in there like seem objectionable to you? Like it's like the holders really aren't that great. Can you get a nice
They
card
look okay. They look okay.
But they're kind of flimsy though. Like the card can move around and stuff. Like it's not a great holder. They need to redesign
the inner holder. Yes. Understood. Yes. I got that. Okay, I'll agree.
Yeah. But and the other piece, honestly, it's like they said, my impression is a lot of questionable trim cards end up there. There are definitely probably more per capita, but can you get good cards out of the hole? Yeah. Like for sure. I know there are cards that are legit that are in those holders, but that's like any other like second or third tier company. You can find good cards in the holder. They just tend to be harder to find.
I'll just be neutral and say it's at least 50%.
There you go. Nice.
That's
I like that.
Neutral, right?
So let's put it this way. You're not going to get too many ringing endorsements of KSA PMN. So, but we'll be as nice as we can say and say that there are good cards in the holders, just not as many as we'd like.
There's some great deals. If you can look at the cards,
if you can see the card in person and really assess it yourself, you can potentially save some money and get a nice card.
Like a Gretzky rookie.
Very much. You could.
There's an 8 sitting there and nobody pays the right money for the 8. And you look at it and go, hey.
Yeah. I just wouldn't pay I wouldn't pay any premium whatsoever.
You're going to be paying the lesser, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no premium. It's actually a considerable
and
reduction on the selling fees, on eBay or wherever it's being sold.
And I would definitely prefer to see that one in person.
Oh yeah.
Making a purchase.
You have to, you can't. can't look through the front of a scan. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so here, so Mr. Dweedy, Nat Turner overpaid for PSA and bought it at the peak. Now everyone else is paying for it. Not really.
That's
I
a
understand.
funny question.
I understand why he's saying it, but I want to take this apart a little bit. I understand his point, but I'll be honest with you. No, he didn't. But I'll tell you why in a second.
Is that a root beer?
No. This one is zero
Dr.
sugar
Pepper?
Pepsi. No, this was Pepsi.
Oh, Pepsi Generation.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the zero sugar one. We had this discussion.
Yes, we did.
This one tastes a little better than that one, though. To be honest, I've had that one. I'm not a big fan. This one is
Yeah,
okay.
actually, this one tastes better than that one because I've had that one too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the other way on you on that one. So let's go with so for this
It's
one here.
personal taste, man.
It is. So the concept is this. The second part of the comment is about the raising the fees, and I'll stand behind this. It is controversial. Some people don't like it. They should have raised the fees more. They should actually charge more per card. More.
Why?
Way more. Because the amount of demand, the amount of cards that are coming in indicate that it's not slowing anybody down. So guess what? Raise it. Make it $100 a card, $200 a card, $500 a card.
It's in their interest to only do that, though. That's the reason why it is.
It is
done.
Yes, and it's like if you're running that business. If I was there
now more than ever.
Yeah, and if I was there in that business, I was going to say, Nat, that low fee, yeah, the one that you can get $20 still in bulk, yeah, make that $50. What about the $50 one? Make it $100. What about the $100 one? Make it $250. Up, all of them across the board. Now the first part. So that's the second part. The second part is nope, raise the fee. First part, overpaid for PSA. No, I don't think it did. I don't think it's worth what that group that was trying to fight them on it was trying to push. They were trying to push it like $100 a share, $200 a share, something ridiculous. I'm like, no, it's not worth that. But is it worth more than 700 or 800 million? Yep, it was. Because they're getting 500,000 cards a week. They raise the rates and they're still getting cards in.
Nonstop.
Nonstop. The business was still growing. They didn't have enough people to meet the demand that they got a multi-million card backlog. They got more business than they can handle. It was worth more than what he paid for it.
And the reason for that is no other grading company really stepped up.
They don't have the capacity or the name brand equity right now.
Beckett and SGC had been around long enough that they could have done something.
Yeah.
They had the potential. These other two companies that are coming up, CSG and what's the MDA? What's the other? CMMDA? I don't know. What's that one that was
Sorry, you're talking about the HGA?
HGA, okay, that one too. Yeah. See, I'm getting mine. I got the other one right.
There's a lot of. We've got an alphabet soup of initials though right now. We have a very big alphabet soup of initials. It gets a little tricky to keep track of, but there's a lot there.
I got it. Mm-hmm. That's why it's got to be Lagan and not Mr. LAGN.
Mm-hmm.
At least we can read it because it's up there.
Yep.
So we have these other two companies coming forward. Are people going to shift over? Not with a great sense of confidence, I would imagine. I think some people are going to test the waters. Some of their grades are getting respectable money. If that happens and keeps going forward, I don't think they'll threaten PSA, but they'll pick up the slack.
I think there's room for a number two. I think there's room for somebody. There's still plenty of room for somebody to jockey for position and take over that number two spot right now.
Yes.
You could do it, but you've got to be strong. You've got to have a vision of what you want to do, but you need to build. We're back to our previous conversation. You need to build capacity. You need to be able to get enough cards graded and out the door to be able to then start taking some market share.
Yeah. It's when there's a flood, it's hard to build boats.
Agreed. And that's the thing with a lot of these graders, all of them are trying to hire at the same time. So it's like, let's say
they're going to hire. It's
Yeah,
not like there's a whole bunch of people sitting out there with grading experience that's going to jump in. It's a technical. It's not even technical. It's more. It's more out. You got to be in the hobby to really be part of it or have an understanding. People coming in greenhorns, you can't teach them unless they're just going to do the new stuff and say, hey, that's what. but I'm sure they need other people to do other stuff too.
They do, but what's going to happen is a lot of the flood right now is more modern stuff, modern and ultra modern. So you can teach that.
Easy.
You can put them in a classroom and be like, look, these are the general principles you need to understand. This is our grading standard. This is how it's applied. You know, centering, edges, corners. But you can teach that. The technical grade on modern is understandable enough. You can figure it out. You can teach somebody in groups. But the problem you run into now, to your point, some of the more subtle issues, some of the more complicated, vintage, certain types of authentication pieces where you really need to authenticate stuff like that. You're not going to hand that to the new grader. You're going to leave that to the more experienced. And to your point, they don't grow on trees. If I'm at Beckett or I'm at SGC and I am an experienced grader who knows how to authenticate this thing in my sleep, and you want me to come over, well, that's going to cost you.
Yep.
So you're going to have to recruit me. You're going to have to pay, good money for my services. Joe Schmo off the street, you get a bunch of kids. Well, you can probably pay them very low. Like you're probably not going to have to offer too much, but you also get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
They're not invested in this. It's a job. They're going to come and do the training, do the thing. You get what you pay for. But right now, you guys want them to grade the stuff and get it out the door? Well, that's how we're going to have to do this. You're going to have to settle that, some kid who's been looking at this for 2 weeks is the one grading your card. It's not somebody with experience.
And they might get lucky and get a few sharp people in there, and then go through another hiring and then get a couple more sharp people.
It'll be a math problem. And that's how it has to be. But that's normal. That's business, right?
Yeah.
So nothing crazy there. So let me grab a couple of these comments here. So Sanderson said when KSA came out, they just like, I don't know. I've heard this from some folks, and I don't know who decided to just keep lying about it. It's like there is no.
That was a long time ago.
But I remember that there were definitely some folks that said that. I know that for a fact.
Who owned it before? Steve. What was his name? I remember the first guy who started the company, and he was a good grader at that time.
Yeah. So
good. I didn't say great. Just good.
Yeah, I got you. So this right here is exactly the point, which is right. Not only do I guarantee it, they should. From I'm saying, as a collector or as a person, an investor sending in cards, you may not like it, and I understand that, and I'm not discounting that.
But I'm saying, what are you going to do?
But from a business perspective, because here's the piece that a lot of them like to forget. A lot of the same people that are complaining about them raising prices, you were not complaining when it was like $8 a card in bulk, and you were able to turn a $5 card into a $50 or $100 card. Well, PSA is sitting there, we are making you money.
Well, then they started to charge a little bit. They started to charge a percentage.
That's fine. Exactly. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that they are basically making money for you. The right grade basically converts your cheap asset, your piece of cardboard, into cash money. So they're sitting there like, okay, if you want to send just $5 cards to grade, it takes the same amount of time. Unless it's like a big dollar card that requires some authentication or some research or something. The majority, a 1985 card from the junk wax era takes the same amount of time as a 2015 card, the same amount of time as a 2019 card. Most of them don't require any special authentication, nothing special. Depends on the card. Most of them don't. But if you send us 5,000 of them, it eats up a lot of time. I got to put it in front of somebody. They got to grade it, even if it's for a couple of seconds. Well, that's going to take a couple seconds away from this other pile of cards that we got to do anyway. So bump up the price.
The one thing I really liked about the PSA acquisition was that they were going to go private.
Yep.
And I really like that part of it. I don't like being the slave to investors. And then things go up and go a little sideways. eBay's sort of the same way. They keep upping the rates. Like, 17% selling. That's like an auction house. And people are looking for alternatives. But they have to perform because you have to be better than the last quarter or last fiscal year. It's there's nonstop. There's nothing about there's no sense of sustenance. Like, hey, we didn't go down. We didn't have any attrition. We're doing good here. No, we got to go here. We got to keep it every time, and that's driving prices because that's the way the stock market works, which is silly for some businesses anyway.
Well, I will say one thing that you're 100% right about the eBay piece, but one thing that I will say differs. eBay's one advantage for the longest time, and they became a necessary evil for it, and they still are, is that it is a platform that has eyeballs. You can get your card out there in front of people who can then potentially find it and make offers on it, bid on it, whatever the case may be. Now, Can you get more money than trying to randomly put it on Instagram? Yes. But if you have enough followers on Instagram and maybe somebody passes it to the right person, you could probably make a deal that way. You could. You lose certain mechanisms, but you gain certain mechanisms, right?
Facebook.
So what happens though is it's not like by putting it on eBay you get triple the price that you would get by doing it on Instagram if somebody sees it and makes an offer. If they want the card, maybe they offer a little less, but you could probably get pretty close to the same, if not more, in some cases, if you find the right person.
Well, if you're not paying the fees, then you can take that. Let's say
Correct.
10% off at
Correct.
least.
Yes. So what I'm saying is like the difference is not that crazy. Whereas by contrast, okay, sell the card raw, you can sell it for $500. You get a PSA 10, you can sell it for $80,000. The difference, the multiples is humongous. It's off the charts. So PSA can sit there and go like, yeah, you sent it to us, you paid this fee, you whined about it the whole way, but it came to the grade you wanted and you just made 80 grand.
Yeah.
So shut up.
Basically, shut up.
But that is, as a company, they're basically like, you're not whining when you're making all this money.
Yeah.
Why are you sending $5 cards? Is it because you want it in your collection for the grade? No, it's because you want to sell it. You're not sending $5 cards because you want it in a fancy holder. Don't lie to me. Basically, though, they're telling you that. They're like, don't lie to me. You're not.
That's a smaller percentage.
Yeah, you're going to send your Jordan rookie because you want it authenticated too, and you know that it's going to make a very big difference. You need that. You send your Mano rookie. Yes, that makes logical sense. Well, guess what? Those folks are not affected by this.
No.
They're going to still send it. It's you. It's the people selling the $5 and $10 cards. It's like, look, you're the ones we're trying to get rid of.
That's right.
Go away.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't up their price prior to this, just on the bottom end of the scale to drop that off a little bit.
They did some changes with Ultra Modern and stuff to try to modify that a little bit. That was part of it.
Well, when a lot of the cards weren't even going for what the grading fees are in the last few years.
Yep.
Well, at that point, why would you send more in?
Mm-hmm.
As a dealer, I guess, if you were.
Mm-hmm. So let me quickly grab this one here. So Jim Oz says, if PSA 10s don't have to be flawless, why are they PSA 10s? Boom. Hockey guys bang on with that. That's the answer. No, I love when the chat answers the question, and that is 100% the correct answer. The PSA 10 standard is not flawless. It never has been. If they follow their standard, you can get a PSA 10 and have off center a little bit. You got some room within that to get a PSA 10 still.
That's why we got to turn it up to 11.
Exactly.
Well, that's where the Pristine comes in, which was really smart of Beckett.
Yeah, but it gave them something that they could hold over PSA and say R10 is better, which in theory it is, because they can hold it to a higher standard and it becomes more difficult to attain.
And then you have the next step, even beyond 11, is you have the PWCC. No, okay, Black Label. Sorry,
Black Label's another.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant before. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then you have the PWC,
yes.
AE, and whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they brought that up to another level. It's sort of like, oh, this is the top 15%. This is the top 20%, 30%.
Well, I love the number 12, Bobby. I'm good with 12.
We're at 12.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me quickly zip through these here. So Rich here saying, I do wonder how graders are paid. I suspect it's honestly a different, I suspect it's different on your level. I would bet if you're a rookie grader, a newer one, it's probably hourly rate. This is just a guess.
You think it's minimum wage though?
It probably is right now. I saw a post that said that PSA seemed to be offering really low amounts. If not minimum, then barely above.
What's the minimum wage there?
In some parts of the States, I think it's 15.
Well, they're out of California, aren't they?
Yep. But $15 an hour is a pittance in California.
Yes, I know.
Even 20 or 25 is a pittance in California. With the cost of living? Yeah, with the cost of living, that's not going to get it done. You're not going to get a lot of. That was kind of the point of the post, is they said if they're offering that, then somebody in California is going to be like, why don't I just work at McDonald's then?
Yeah.
Why would I need to do this? So
it's a highly taxed state too, so they got to be paying them a half decent dollar.
I do think, though, if you are an experienced grader, somebody who maybe has that additional understanding of being able to authenticate and stuff, you probably have salary. That's just a guess on my part. I would suspect they probably work on salary. The lower grade folks probably work by the hour. That would be my an educated.
Yeah, because salary just means you don't have a 40-hour work week.
Yeah, because but the thing is, the idea, though, is you're supposed to be there for those Jordan rookies. You're supposed to be there for those high-end cars. You're supposed to get in there and deal with those.
I'm sure everybody has their sort of specialty that they're known for.
Exactly. Okay, so we got a little answer here underneath, so we'll get to that in a second here. Yeah, someone should interview a grader. I think it would be interesting. I'd be surprised what they could tell you. It might have to be a former grader.
Uh,
I would bet it'd have to be a former grader. I'm just throwing it out there.
it would only be a former grader.
Correct. BSA that would ding corners, but if you look at the online guide, the corners should be sharp. Yeah, no, I get it. But that goes back to that human factor aspect of it. That they can screw up, and that's not shocking. I get it. With JSA not in the grading aspect, are they sitting back laughing? Probably. The minimum wage in Cali is apparently $12 an hour. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cheap.
Might have to stop sending a PSA. I want my greatest to earn a livable wage. It's like, you're more than welcome to make that standard. Other people will, they'll still have 500,000 cards a week. So it will not make a difference.
What's our minimum wage? 14 something?
Oh, they changed it. Aren't we up to 15 or close?
Well,
because,
I thought it was
because
graduated.
because it went in grades. Like it was increasing over time.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to get to 15.
It's supposed to, yeah, but we're at 14 something, whatever it is an hour. I don't think it's 15 yet, but just to let any Americans know that that's across Canada. It doesn't matter what you do.
14.25 in Ontario.
Oh, is it different?
Yeah.
Province to province?
Starting, yeah, 80. Oh, it's by province. Absolutely. So starting, so right now in Ontario it's 14.25, and starting October 1st, it's supposed to increase again. But it's based on the consumer price index.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so it's you do it and then you keep adjusting it based on the consumer price index.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody's got to pull out the calculator and figure out what that ends up being by October. Make it a little more complicated. Okay, so here, so Sanderson to Orr says all companies should grade 1 to 10. That's a question of go lower grade. They also need to have higher standards. Okay, so actually, I like this question because it brings up an interesting point. I think it's an interesting point. Okay, so here's what I'll do. Let me do two things. I saw him there the whole time, but I was kind of in the middle of mid conversation, mid verbiage. Bobby, it's your favorite person. It's your favorite person in the world. Don't you want to see your favorite person?
Okay, bring Justin in.
Good evening, Justin.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
So Justin, I'm going to give you a shot here. I'm going to give you a shot. I'm going to go fill my beer, but I'm going to read this question first. But if you want to take a stab at it, Bobby first, and then you can take a stab at this one because this could be interesting. But let me present it first. Let me present this a little bit because I read the question, but let me throw something at you guys. It says all companies should grade 1 to 10. I don't have any moral objection to that. Fine. Just for simplicity, make everybody's life easier. I'm cool with that. And I think most of them have standardized it to 1 to 10 now anyway, because SGC used to have that like 90, 100, whatever. They got rid of that, and now they're like on a 1 to 10 scale as well. They've got half grades and stuff, but they're on a 1 to 10 scale in the current version. Beckett already does that. CSG does that. They're all in 1 to 10 scale. Now, if this question go to low grade, that's fine. So it says here, they also need to have higher standards. Let me pose this to you though. Mid-flight, what do you think would happen if they suddenly decided to, across the board, the different grading companies decided to suddenly be more stringent so that you send it in and it becomes really hard to get 10s when in the past it was easier? And you're a person who's been sending in, getting all these 10s, and all of a sudden you're getting hit with 9 5s and 9s and almost no 10s. But you're a big bulk submitter. What would, prisoner's dilemma style, what would prevent one of the other graders from handing out a couple of more 10s to get some more business? And who would be the first to crack? And as soon as one cracks and starts getting a sudden surge of business, what's to prevent the others from then coming back down? And also, what about the people before where all of a sudden you're like, okay, so is this an old slab, a new slab? Because once you had that arbitrary cutoff, you suddenly the 10 from 2020 is worse than the 10 is worse than the 10 from 2021, potentially. And you suddenly created this fragmentation in the market. There's some layers to this. It's not as simple. Do you get what I'm saying?
Are you suggesting fraud?
I'm not suggesting fraud. I'm suggesting logic. They've already messed themselves up. Like it's too late.
By lessening and making extra 10s? That's what?
The thing though is you can, because it's subjective, this has already happened organically. But the problem is if you went and specifically said, okay, we're going to adhere to the standard harder now, great. But then what happened to the one that was graded 6 months ago when you had the looser standard? As a buyer, you don't know when's the cutoff? What was the serial number at which the last easy 10 happened compared to the difficult one? Well, it's impossible.
The good news is the modern, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the vintage is already graded. That's the good news. The bad news is, we're going to get a couple new vintages, so they just got to play their cards right when it comes down to the vintage. But as far as modern goes, it's a mess. That's how I will look at it.
Yeah. Now imagine if you get hit with the stigma where you're like, oh yeah, it's the 9, but it's an old 9. So maybe it's actually an 8. So imagine somebody tries to pitch that to you, like, what does it say on the holder, man?
People actually do mention that.
But that's my point. That's what I'm trying to get at. And I'll give you guys a corollary in a second.
Mhm.
But you understand kind of where I'm getting at with this, Bobby. Like, you understand kind of where I'm pointing this out.
I know exactly where
It
you're
would be
going.
very difficult to try to execute that. And if one of the companies did it, the other ones would be like, should we? Or should we let them do it and maybe lose business?
It's a tough argument.
It is. I'll be back in 2 seconds, guys. But I wanted to throw that a couple of those kind of complexities out at you guys because there's a little room there. There's a little room there for some thought. Make
Yeah.
the noodle work a bit. Be right back.
Says Amen, Carlos. They can't change now. So many years into grading. I think it changes constantly. It depends on which grader you're getting. There's so many different grades out there through the course of time, as I have seen. Some are above, some are below. Most are basically very, very close. And as Carlos said, it's very subjective. We can complain about the grading companies, but we don't work there. We don't want to own one. So somebody has to do it, and we have to take the consequences of wherever you send your cards. Unfortunately, that's the hobby, and I don't grade many cards at all. I think I've only graded a few in all the years I've been doing this. Because clearly when I sent mine in, I didn't know how to grade because I got back really low grades on some cards that I didn't understand why they got so low. From 9s to 7s. But we all get that. And I think grading companies are just that. They're in business, and you have good workers, bad workers. Some days you're on, some days you're off. We're all on or off on days. Anybody who works wherever you work, some days you're just off, and you're tired. You stay up too late, or you just don't feel well that day. And are you going to grade at your top potential?
Yeah, I think the toughest part is going to be when they do get the vintage, like that Ray Bork that I got, the PSA 10, right? We know that it's PSA 10. So at the end of the day,
it says 10 on it.
It does say 10, right? But that's going to be their toughest avenue. But there's just not that many left to grade. But then again, you got the crossovers, so. But I think
that was the reason why I presented this scenario where what if people start associating a certain era of the slab with weaker grading? Because I'll give you guys a quick corollary. This happened in the coin market. And I bring up the coin market because they were doing third-party grading longer. So whenever you guys want to see what happens, they've done a lot of these experiments. A lot of this stuff has happened. So you can actually go back and see what happened with that market at the time. And what happened is there are people who will go seek out the older slabs because they were graded harder back then. And they will use them as crack-out candidates to take them into the modern one because they grade looser, so you can actually get a higher grade. And that potentially can be a very profitable sort of arbitrage. Now, in this case, you're almost creating the opposite scenario where people then kind of downplay the previous iteration and then are looking for the more strict one. But the problem is, okay, so what happens if you had a good grade? The problem is, what if your good grade is warranted, but you've got the old slab? This is where Bobby's scenario plays in. What if you have a 10 and resubmit it to get a 10? Well, we need a new 10, not the old 10.
That's right.
It's like, that would be awful.
Because people will bid more because the new 10 is worth more than the old 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but it's true.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, we're taking it to the extreme. But I give the extreme so that we can consider some of the trickiness behind it. And I want to include this comment here because yes, the thing is though, the strict, looser, it happens. There are waves. There are waves of time. But the original idea was doing it intentionally, systematically, as a matter of policy. That's why my answer honestly is no. But as an intellectual exercise, it's interesting to think about because yes, it will happen in ebbs and flows though. But because it wasn't this strict cutoff where suddenly we're being more strict for sure across the board in every instance, then you don't necessarily notice it. It doesn't have that same stigma of a certain era of slab necessarily. But if it happens, that's what you would encounter. And what if you can't tell the difference because the labels look the same, the slab looks the same? At least with the old coin holders, they look like they're the older design, old label. You can see the serial number and figure out what era it is and be able to figure it out that way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate between all the companies they don't have a standardized grading platform that they all use. Loosely, they do,
Mm-hmm.
but it is all different between the companies,
But could you
and the
imagine though if
people
they
are
tried
all
to do it?
different too.
Could you imagine if they tried to do it though?
You can't. It's unobtainable.
Yeah, and the other thing though is half grades, right? Because they don't all use half grades.
Half grades on, I don't even believe in half grades, to be honest with you.
Okay.
As you get to I would say maybe a 9 up. You could put a 9.5 in there. I think that's because some are just a touch, and that's where that flux can come in and play well. But what's a 6.5? Like, really? Come on. 4.5.
Let me
4.5
You
is
know
actually a dividing line. So there you go. Because if you have a crease card, 3 to 4, that's where that dividing line is. And we have that established, and we have what a 10 is. But everything else is subjective in between. Ones are kind of subjective. You got the pinhole in the head. Well, it's bigger than the pinhole. Okay, is it a 1? Yeah. Is it a lesser one or better one? It's just authentic.
Well, no, I was about to ask that question based on what you just said. So what if you've got the grading standards? Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's give Bobby his dream. They standardize it across the board. They actually establish it. They establish it and they say, okay, we're all going to, you guys do your grading, we'll do our grading. But this is the standard. This is a playbook we're all going to play by. This is what a 10 is. This is what a 9 is, 8, 7, 6, all the way down. Okay. So we've got that. But we've got what I like to refer to as the technical grade. These are the rules. These are the criteria. Technical grade. That's why I say like the pinhole. You could have a card that looks beautiful, flawless. You put a pinhole on it, it's automatically a poor. It has to be. It's got a hole in it. So it's got to be poor. But now you go in, and let's say you're in one of those regular kind of mid-tier grades, like a 5. Let's call it 5 for a vintage card. It's 5. Nice looking card. It's good. Tremendous centering, clean image, good surface, all this stuff. It shows exceptionally for 5. It has to be a 5 because it is a technical grade of a 5. It's got some creases on it and things that knock it down to a 5. It can't be a 6. It has to be a 5. You don't have anything like a 5 plus. That's where a 5.5 can come into play because you're not as good as a 6, but it's better than your standard garden variety 5. Otherwise, a 5 then is not a 5 because this 5 is better than that 5.
I think the 3 to 4 range works because when you have a crease, you're at 3. And then if you have more creases, 2 to 3, still kind of a 3, a low end 3, and then you have a very little corner ding that's sort of a crease. Then I can get into the 4. So I understand maybe there could be half grades there. I'll
sure,
because I said they could, the 10s, 9.5, and the 3 and 4s, yes, but 6, 7, 8, that's semantics there. It's really
with the
tough
Gretzky,
call.
The 7.5 on a Gretzky, it makes sense to me. So I've seen 7s and I've seen 8s and I've seen 7.5s, and it just works with the Gretzky on a 7.5. Now 8.5, it's a little tougher.
You're going to have a tough time arguing for the 7.5 and then saying the 8.5 is no good. Hang tight for 2 seconds. Hang tight for 2 seconds. Hang tight for 2 seconds. Hang tight. I read Sanderson's comment originally, and then I started to take it off, and then I read it again. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I understand what he's getting at here, but a new company could build their business model on being better and more strict. Cool. Okay. Let me play with this for 2 seconds. Cool. You do that. You're more strict. So I can get a 10 going to PSA and the established market players, or I can get an 8 going to you, and my card sells for less. Why would I send you a card? Your model is to be more strict. Congratulations. You're more strict. You're getting no business.
Because they charge $1.
Well, but that's what you'd have to do, though. You'd have to be like, if we charge less to that degree, then
that's right.
But otherwise, it's like, so if you send it to us, we'll tell you your card is crummier, so that it can sell for less money. And it's like, no, let's not say we did.
I think if you had a card and you asked 10 people, will the 10 people say it's all a 7? You'll have 6s and 8s in there, and you'll have 7s. The healthy average is 7.5. Is it 6.5? Is it the 8? Is it 7? Is it 6? Man, you just can't do it, and that's where those half grades are.
I like the half grades.
They're a bump in in a financial sense, I understand that.
Mhm.
But in a physical sense, looking at a card, there should be a certain drawing a line like, okay, it has this, this, and this. You know, if it steps over that line, it goes down a grade. And a grade is not to go down that far in a whole grade. It has to have those certain things. If it doesn't, it's a solid 7. And no 7 is no 7 bang on. There's nobody can say that, oh, that's a bang on 7.
Yep,
It's just, you know, it's 7.3 or
7.3.
6.9. Well, no, really, because
I get
degrees.
it. I get it.
So, you know, there's no, and we're using our human eye here. We're not
Mhm.
scanning them.
But there's
Come on,
certain
Bobby, you can't discern a grade to 100th of a point. Come on, man.
No, I cannot. Not with my eyes. I'm too old now.
So let me quickly
there's
grab
certain
Sanders'
cards like a Gretzky where it does make sense.
Right. Doesn't make a difference in a Gretzky.
And it trickles.
But anyway, yeah. So anyway, so Sanders' point here. This is true. So, but here's the problem with this idea. You started off with the premise of a new company. You still have to convince somebody to submit it. Because the problem is if you start with the premise, it's like, oh, we're stricter. And I'm like, if I'm a seller, I don't necessarily
That is not a selling feature.
That's not a selling feature. No. If I'm a seller, like I don't want you to be so loose that like a torn in half card gets a 10, but there's a lot of room between that and you know, a card that could get a 10 and most of the other manufacturers gets an 8 from you. The idea that a 10 would get more, that might be true, but you're not going to be able to grade enough cards for that to matter.
When I'm buying a house, I want a stricter home inspector.
Yes.
When those are the things you want stricter, you know, with graders, you don't want stricter. You just want fair. And if they can be, and PSA is actually, I have to say across the board, they're fair, but there's some extremes there and bad days, good days, bad graders, good graders. I don't know.
You're going to get screwed up with every single one of these companies.
Is there behind the scenes stuff happening? I don't know. I don't care. It's just whatever it is. But they're the fairest out there, and that's why they're the number one in the business.
Yeah, and the thing is, and the reality is, they still get the best resale. Like as long as that's true, that remains the number one thing. Stricter or not stricter, what's the resale? If the resale's the highest, that's the one you're going to send to. You telling me you're stricter, that's cool. That's awesome. So what?
Yeah, and I've sent them half dozen cards in 20 years, so I'm good.
Well, then you're an expert. You know. Yeah, people are paying PSA for their subjective grade, whether you like it or not. The market accepts a subjective grader. I think we kind of all agreed to that. I think we were in general agreement with that premise. So let me see here.
I'm going to take a washroom break. I'll be right back.
No worries. So Sanderson Nora says, we all agree the standards are off and this would fix it in time and put the current brands out of business. Not really. No. Like the standards being off or not, like I said, it's not that the standards are off. It's how you apply them. The 10 has never been flawless. The 10 has never been perfect. And it's been written, PSA from day one wrote down what a Gem Mint 10 was for them. It was never a perfect card. Ever. Now, when we say looser or stricter, what we're actually talking about is how well they apply it. We're saying we're looser on how much in that scale we're willing to accept, because in the PSA's website, you can have 55-45 centering on the front and like 60-40 on the back or something like that. Someone can correct me. PSA does have it published, but you've got those standards for centering, for example, and these different areas that you can go in. If it's applied to the letter of the law, the letter of the rule, you can have 10s that look very different. Now, when people say, oh, but my 10 has a ding, I don't disagree with you. You're probably right. But you're going to find that in every single grader if you look for it, because they can have a bad day. They can screw up, or heaven forbid, they can damage your card putting it in the holder. So it could have actually been graded accurately, and then by the time it got in the holder, some damage got carried over and you got to have it. I've seen cards where someone has shown that there was a fingerprint put on the card. Somebody screwed up and accidentally put a fingerprint on it that wasn't there when they sent it in. The technical grade might have been fine, but there's this fingerprint on the damn thing, and it's inside the holder. So now you have to crack it out of the holder to take off the fingerprint. So a lot of stuff happens. You submit enough cards, you're going to get it. So Robert says here, I find SGC more consistent than PSA for vintage. Fair enough. PSA have to higher resale value. Very fair. Very fair. 1 to 3 should be okay. 4 to 6 good. 7 to 8 great, and 10 excellent. And the thing is, you could have I guess part of the problem is, and this is what I remember somebody mentioning it. And actually here, Sanderson's comment here is perfect for me. Gem Mint means what PSA thinks. Gem Mint didn't exist. until PSA showed up. There was no such thing as gem mint. For the longest time in the hobby, mint was the maximum. If you had a mint card, that was the best card. Gem mint was created as kind of this illusion. So gem mint is almost like this imaginary thing that grading created. There was really no such thing as a gem mint card for the longest time. And if you go back to like old Beckett's and stuff, they don't even mark them as mint cards. It was like near mint was the grade that Beckett would show for the pricing. So they didn't even acknowledge mint as it was available, but it wasn't even what the guide was talking about. The guide was talking about near mint for most of the even modern cards. So gem mint is like, we just invented it. It came into being in the early 90s with grading.
Beckett invented it too, right?
Yeah. So it's one of those things. They just agreed to create this. They decided to create this grade.
Right.
And then when Beckett showed up, they added pristine. So they said gem mint isn't even good. This thing we made up in the first place is not good enough. We need pristine, which is even better than gem mint.
Right.
So we took a made up thing, came up with another made up thing, and then we've got pristine black label.
Better than PSA, right?
Yeah. So it's like we're even better than better. Yeah. So that the thing is, guys, a lot of the gradings, maybe the way I would put it is this. All your points are completely valid. I'm not disagreeing with you fundamentally, by the way. Just so we're clear, I think your points are solid. I understand where you're coming from. But we've almost, as a hobby, agreed to something that everyone kind of acknowledges. A lot of us hobbyists who've been around a while, we kind of all acknowledge it's stupid. It's idiotic. We've kind of allowed it because the people that submit the grading and they sell the card, they're like, look, I don't care, man. It can say words instead of letters or numbers or whatever. And it's like, yeah, roll with it. Whatever. Ludicrous speed. Go ahead. There's a little Spaceball reference for those of you that catch that one. But literally it was made up. And then we kind of just roll with it. And now for the newer collectors that are coming in, or investors, #invest, whoever they may be, they've now taken into the vernacular. So now they speak in those terms. Oh, gem mint. Could this gem? And then with Beckett, you've got the subgrades. So it's like, oh, you've got the high-end gem and the low-end gem and almost pristine and all that stuff. And it's like, it's made up. It's just made up stuff.
All of it's made up.
Yeah. The old grades, basically from 9 down, are the traditional grades that existed for a long time. Those ones are the grades that used to exist, and they're still more or less in effect. But beyond mint is just stuff we made up. Anything above a 9 is like, it's imaginary. And the thing is, as long as they adhere to that grading standard that's published, technically they've given you exactly what they said they gave you. They never promised you a perfect card. And I remember in some literature, they specifically said a gem mint 10 is not a quote unquote perfect card. They would tell you that. Dealers would call it different, and people would call it, oh, this is a perfect card. It's off center. It's not perfect. It's pretty good. It's not perfect.
Right. But I do want to push back on the fact that a gem mint 10 is better than a 9. You know what I mean? So they did make it up, but at the end of the day, those cards really do look better than the 9s.
They're supposed to. They should. They're supposed to. But what they did in order to accomplish this task
over here, and that's why people pay so much in that made up universe. You know,
the reason, Justin, that they can do it is that they bumped down the definition of what used to be a mint card. What was a mint card got pulled into what gem mint is, because, and Bobby, you can kind of attest to this. For the longest time in the hobby, mint was the maximum.
10.
Who made the word mint? Was it Beckett that made that up in the 80s?
Mint was around for quite a while, Bobby. Maybe you can correct me. I know you've got some. You've pulled some old guides and stuff. It's been around for a while.
Yeah. Oh, I have one here.
Yeah. So I know Bobby was doing some research on some old guides and stuff. So there's definitely some amazing. There's a good one in here. It's an old baseball alphabet Beckett or something. Okay. I forget which one it's in, but it's in the first. What year would that one be?
It's number 5, so it doesn't really even tell you the date this is.
Might be late 80s then.
Yeah, they're all from the 80s, yes.
Yeah. No, I think the first physical book guides from Beckett was 84, maybe 83, something like that. So I'm just guessing. Trying to remember, I used to know actually when they started their physical guide. I know the magazine came later, but the physical guides.
Probably it should say in the front. Or
Condition. Well, it just vaguely goes across it.
Yeah, sometimes they'll include the definition, sometimes not so much.
Yeah, condition. Mint, very good, excellent, fair, and good.
Yeah, they used to have a lot less grades available, and then they slowly added more and more as they tried to distinguish the levels in between.
Yes.
But mint was the high end. And mint, as you can tell, since there's only like 5 grades there, mint is very loose. It covers a lot of ground. So it's very easy for you to move mint down a slot and create gem mint as a high-end mint, because mint used to cover a little bit of ground.
Quite a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny that PSA moved in and basically took one out of Beckett's book, calling it gem mint. So
Well,
at one time they
Beckett
were a third party. That's what.
Yeah, the thing is, it made sense though because Beckett had been around for a little while, it had become established in the market, so it became easier to borrow what they've got there and then let's use it.
Yeah.
So I don't believe there is a mint card, anyways. There's no such thing as a perfect card. There's always something. It's paper. It's cardboard. Sorry, it's just very few that are true mint. There's always a little something, but there's the leeway they give themselves.
That's right. I wanted to have a little fun though, because Robert had a very good comment here, and I have a little fun with it. So let me have a little fun with you guys. And I promise I won't spend too much time on this category, but I got to show it to you just for reference point, because Robert here is saying it's amazing that good is a terrible grade, 2 out of 10, right? Good 2. Okay. There is precedence for this, though. Remember what I said earlier? If you're curious about third-party grading and that format and everything, it's like, guys, go to some of the other collectible fields, and you will get some background. Now, let me show you something that's kind of fun, real quick. Okay, so this is PCGS, which is owned by Collectors Universe, which is PSA, by the way. They've got a visual grading guide for coins. Good is a 6. You don't need to know anything about coins to know that the damn thing is almost worn out. This is a low grade, and that is a good. Very good is not that much better. So we have to go all the way up. Now this is coins. They use a different grading scale.
Yes.
They use what's called mint state for their high end. A perfect coin, quote unquote, is a mint state 70. But the point that I'm trying to get at is down here, going all the way near the bottom, good can be as bad as this. And they have what's called almost good. So it's like, and poor is this. It's basically worn down to a piece of metal. So even in other collectible fields, good is actually pretty low grade. So it's actually not rare. I just thought I would show that to you because it made me laugh, because as soon as I saw it, it's like, I get what you're saying. Logically, it makes a lot of sense. But actually in other collectible fields, they use the same nomenclature.
Yes.
So there's a little nod to Broncos 79 Steve, since he enjoys his nomenclature.
He does like that word.
He does, yes. Many are paying good money for Mint 9OCs. Yes. Very fun.
Yeah, I can't seem to find it right now. It's not really
no worries.
posted in these ones so much.
Yep.
It just tells you the grade. That's all. What a grade is. Doesn't tell you what the grade is based on. But I think we all know what it is.
Yep.
It's a near perfect, flawless card. Near.
That's what it was supposed to be. Yeah, but it did have a fair bit of space. It had originally, because there weren't as many grades, you had a lot of room there to kind of interpret it a little bit, and dealers would take advantage of that, and that's part of what led to third-party grading in some of it. So Yannick says, I would be curious how many people can exactly point to 10 cards in front of them, 5 9s and 5 10s, and be right on the money. 0.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, because it's so subjective, you would get such a low percentage, it would be obscene. Like, it really would.
Yeah, even I think I know how to grade pretty good, and I'm not.
It's tough. It's really tough. The reason I use the reference point of the coins sometimes, because I have familiarity with that side of it. I actually have a book on my shelf that is you want to laugh about grading standards. I have a book that's called the ANA, the American Numismatic Association Grading Standards. It's a book on grading standards. That's how complicated it is, because they have a 1 to 70 scale. It's a lot more complicated, but because you think it's a piece of metal, well, a scratch is normal. You can have an excellent condition 1 right at the top of the scale. It's like, well, it's a piece of metal. It got pressed into a piece of metal. So a scratch is Totally legitimate, of course.
It's not like they took it off and went,
No.
put it in a
Yeah, they
nice.
weren't being dainty about it. No. It was intended for purpose. It was meant to be used as currency. It's supposed to go in your pocket. It was thrown on the counter to pay for something. The expectation that it is somehow avoided scratches between the time it got produced, thrown in a bag for current circulation, put into a roll, sent to your bank, impossible. So you build that into the grading standard. You have a certain understanding, a tolerance, if you will, for certain flaws. You understand that's reality. But that's why I included. That's why I wanted to give you the reference, Anderson. Almost good, yes, almost good. So anyway, Steve's here. Good evening, Steve. So Yannick says, so 9s are fine with me. Yeah, no, that's fair. As a collector, I would never deter you from 9s. You're going to get some excellent cards. There's nothing wrong with a 9. You don't need to pay the premium for a 10 unless you happen to want a 10. But you have to want it. But like otherwise, as a collector, there's no justification to pay a premium for that.
The one thing that PSA does, and I think it's sort of a caveat to their grading, is the OC.
Sure.
Mark I get, Stain I get, S and whatever, MK. The other one, the OC, because if it's something is, I see a lot of cards that really aren't OC. They're off center, but I mean they're not to that degree. And then some that are way off that are OC, and it's you shake your head and go, that's almost to miscut. Like, where does that scale start and end is another question. It goes a little deeper, and usually it's 2 grades if something is OC generally, but sometimes it's 1 depending on. So it's a tough scale to appropriate the right grade to, especially when you add a qualifier in there.
Yeah. Well, the shame is that the OC1 should be theoretically easier, because in theory all you got to do is like, okay, because it depends on the card, right? Some cards don't have borders, and that complicates matters. So let's be fair, that complicates matters a lot. But if your card has a border, all you have to do, this is what I used to do when I submitted cards. It's like, okay, if you've got a border, measure the 2 edges, add it up, and there's a percentage. 50-50 means if it's 5 and 5, it's 10 total, and it's 5 and 5, you're bang on. If it's 6-4, it's 60-40. It's not rocket science.
I had a friend call me today about a grade.
Yeah.
He said, what would you rather have? And he said a 1980, talking about a 1980 Wayne Gretzky second year card. So he says, would you like to have a 9 OC or an 8?
8 all day long.
Carlos?
For that, I would take the 8.
That's what I told him.
Because between a 9 and an 8, it's not.
It's a higher grade.
No, I get you, but I'm saying, like, in terms of like what you're going to get quality wise, if you got a good quality 8 that's reasonably centered, you're fine.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Right. Also, it's a better card, and then on top of that, the stigma with the OC. So it's a double easy answer. Right?
Yeah. Well, I told him what I feel and why, and exactly what you guys. It's.
Yeah. Now, if you said to somebody a 9 OC or like a 4, well then, okay, fine. This is not that complicated, but it depends on the gap between the two. 9 and 8 though is a slam dunk. I think that's an easy one.
Yeah, but if someone likes sharp corners, a 9 OC works for them better.
Sure. It really.
But
depends.
it's harder to sell in the marketplace, is what I told them.
True.
It's harder to sell a 9 OC than it is a solid 8.
Right. It's always good to give them a little answer before you bottom line them on that one.
Yeah.
Now this was the 1980 Gretzky, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, since you brought it up, I remembered that I saw a headline on it. So did you hear about a PWCC sale on a 1980 O.P.G. Gretzky recently? And by recently, I mean 2 days ago.
I mean, I didn't watch the show, so I don't know.
Okay. Let me show it to you. It just so happens I have it queued up.
I seen you there, Justin.
Yeah. I was there. I was like, Bobby's over.
Oh, I didn't even know. I was just guessing. I was here.
No, I was there for the second. I called everybody out. I was like, what are you doing with Carlos on tonight? And Jeremy's like, oh, Justin, and he's like, I was just joking. And he was like getting defensive. And I was just like, by the way, Bobby's featuring over there. And that was it. He stopped talking.
Yeah. The thing is, the thing that made me chuckle about that is that honestly,
oh my God, 60,000.
Yeah. It's like Bobby was the underbidder at 59. But anyway, what's interesting about it, I'll zoom in for you, Bobby. I just wanted to let everybody get a chance to see the price first. So I'll zoom in a little bit for you, if that helps. So the interesting thing about it is, as we're talking about it here, I didn't know that Jeremy was going to do the to be honest, I hadn't been keeping track of the PWCC auctions, so I didn't know the hockey one was ending on that day. But the previous week, I had already said, well, I'm doing the Friday stream. And then on Wednesday, I said, I'm doing the Friday stream. And then I saw Jeremy's thing. And by that time, I already had the placeholder and everything. I'm like, I'm not going to change. I'm going to do my thing. There's no reason. If people want to watch the PWCC thing, they can still go and do it. No problem. Go do your thing. And otherwise, we're going to do our thing over here. So we were hanging out. But it's a nice looking card. It is a PSA 10. 60 grand, though, for the second year Gretzky. That's a spicy meatball, as you would say. That is quite a thing.
Was it a top tiered one? One of their things on the back?
Let us see. Nope. No special sticker on this one. No special.
Well, that's the old holder. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but definitely like 9.5. Like the centering is about a 45.
Justin,
40.
now you care about centering? What has happened to you, sir?
Well, I mean, it's truth. Look at it.
It's a little diamond. It's a little slight diamond.
Yeah, but it's also like this border is bigger than the other border.
I'm used to these.
Oh yeah.
Over here on the right. So like it is shifted over. But the thing is, I'd have to measure it out, obviously. But I think it's still within that tolerance. That's why I say like it's 55-45. You have to do the 55-45. It's still there within the That's why I said like a 10 is not perfect. We talk about the 10 is not perfect. So you have a little room in there. You don't want to push the line of that room, but you could. I like Robert's comment though.
56-44. What is 43-57? Yeah, exactly.
Robert, send it in. You got to let them know. You got to
get a micrometer out for that.
Yeah, he might be right about that. I think it might be 45 actually. Now that he says that.
Yeah. The thing, regardless though, is that at least with centering, like in all honesty, with centering, if you wanted to, you could just take this picture or get a blown up version of it. Just do the measurement. Honestly, you could do the measurement and figure it out. Bang on, you'd know what it is.
You can crop it and bring it over to the other side. Do a lineup.
Yeah,
easy.
just do a measurement, and between the two, do a little math. It's 5 seconds, and you will know the answer to your question as far as centering is concerned.
Yeah, they overpaid.
Yeah. Other issues are going to be right now, as far as I know, I don't see the justification for jumping that high because the previous high to that, let's put it this way. Now it's been a while since a PSA 10 is sold. It's not like they sell every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But the last 10 that I can see on here sold
25?
in October. It sold in October for 5,000.
Oh, October.
A 10.
Good investment.
Yeah, from last October, it was a 5,000. It was in the 4,900, 5,000 range last summer into the fall, and 60,400 in the current one.
So no one prior?
Nothing that came up. It is a pop 35. So it is. It's not the shortest of short prints, but it's a tougher card.
I have to get my 8 out there.
There you go. So option on PSA grading related Uno game cards. Dare we live such a dream? Uno game cards.
What's an 8 worth now?
That's a good question. I think that's a valid question. No such thing as a perfect OPG card. I agree with you. And like I said, though, there is tolerance within, like I said, there is tolerance within 10 for not perfect, but it is a lot of money. Let's be honest. It is a lot of money, and it's a heck of a jump from the last one. It wasn't that long ago.
Compared to some newer basketball cards, I'd say it's not a lot of money.
But that's the argument that some folks use, right? So it's like, but also hockey's potential, buyer base is also smaller. So it's one of those things. The basketball guy at this point, the basketball guys are just used to it. What you paid $1,000? What did you pay $1,000 for? Oh, I think he's a bench warmer on the Lakers. It's like your context is completely out of whack. It's like, so the problem is, it's like you can have these rookies who have done literally nothing. You don't even know who they are. They're like borderline names, and it's like $800. Why? I don't understand. Yeah, because Ryan Walter is on the card. There you go. Nice. But 60,000. That is quite a bit. That's certainly a record for that one. So.
Oh, so there's some other ones out there. Was there any 9s that completed?
I can check. Haven't seen anything recent, but I can certainly look.
Or that are currently listed. Because I'm pretty sure there's a 9. There's 3 9s, I think, listed, if I'm not mistaken. big price tags on them, but
I could definitely see a couple here. So
I wonder after that would overpriced at that time one sell that's a 9, because I did see a 9 or 2 or 3.
yeah, for I always like to use the buy it nows because this is something you could potentially hit the button if you wanted to.
Yeah,
So here you go. For about a tenth the price, you could get a 9.
yeah, and that's now a recent or
This is yeah. This is
oh,
up
it's
to go
current.
now. Yeah, you could hit the button right now if you wanted to.
So 10% a 9. That's
And this one I would say is better centered left to right.
true.
No, it is. It legitimately is. I'm not saying it to be funny. Like it actually, from a quick eyeball, you could just see that I think it's better centered left to right.
Yeah.
So I guess if I was in the market for it, like this wouldn't be a terrible thing. It's still expensive for me, for my blood, but like comparatively,
Wow, that's
for a tenth the
big.
price, you were getting a super high end. You know, you're getting a very high end 1980 Peachy Gretzky.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Wow, that's a lot.
It is. I agree.
And that's not much for that one. So realistically, a 9 should be. It's hard to do the math on that.
The ratios keep changing all the time.
They do. I
It
know.
very much depends on the card as well, because for some cards you're going to get a bigger gap between the two. But you can always do like a historical comparison and be like, well, traditionally, what is the difference here between these two? It does get tricky to do though. Now, by contrast, the 9 is a pop 245.
And the 10 would be?
The 10 was 35.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big ratio difference.
Yeah, so here, the last 8, according to Robert here, the last 8 sold for $9.10 US. Now you could probably get a nice, if you could get an 8 for that would be a decent price, I would say, if you were in the market for a card and wanted the card.
Is that the last?
That's what Robert says.
It's hard to go with one of them. It should be the last 2 or 3. I think they sold at 1,200, and that 900 I think is there. Yeah, I paid. I paid okay.
There you go. But that's the thing, though, is that's kind of the game that's being played right now with a lot of these things. It's games being played with the numbers. That's really all it is. It's that if I put a piece of tape over the label and I hand you the 9 and the 10, and if we just use the centering, you would probably favor the 9, but 1/10 the price, actually less than 1/10 the price. So it's like
a lot less than yeah.
So it's like that's a lot. That's a big difference.
It should be at least 1/10 of the price.
Exactly.
At least.
Exactly. I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Because I do use a mathematical equation when I'm doing my grade downs for the cards, from PSA to regular raw. So there's an equation that actually works out 99% of the time. There's always something that screws you up. But anyways, but not for a 10, though. 10 is like, it's so hard to touch and do any equation on it.
Nice.
Sometimes it's 10%, sometimes it's 20%. And this time it was 6% or something.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what's funny to me? And by the way, this is testament to you, Bobby, and the chat as well. So congratulations to you all. I actually had a whole page of questions that I had received that I hadn't even had the chance to touch.
Oh,
we did such a good job with a lot of the content that was there. It's like, okay. So a couple of things I'll put in there. If any of you do want to pop in, I am going to hold the line on time. So it's 11:08 where I am. Before midnight here in the East, I will hit that button to shut it off. If somebody's mid-sentence, then so be it. That's what's going to happen. So if any of you do want to pop in for a bit, you got a little under an hour. So I would take advantage of that if you wish. If not, then hang out. And if you got any questions or ideas or topics, feel free to throw them into the chat. But let me see if I can grab one of these here. I did want to at least talk about one or two of these here. Okay, so let's do this one. So this was one of the questions brought in, and I believe it was Yannick who brought up these ones. So I've got this here. So this is a good open-ended question. What did 2020 bring in terms of positive or negative effects other than prices? What's the biggest challenge or challenges going on from 2020? And what are the biggest changes or improvements the hobby needs in order to prevent a junk wax error? So that's really 3 questions. But the first one though is probably the one. Let's touch on the first one. Basically, were there any positives for you 2020? Let's not talk price, but just in general, hobby wise, any positives for you? Negatives are fine too, but positives or negatives from the past year into this year with the way the hobby things are going right now?
I'd have to say there's a few positives.
Sure.
I did like seeing the new companies come in. I did like seeing the new podcasts come up. It gave more information to the people. We're sharing more. We're a little more lucid about what's going on in the hobby through this sharing. Usually sharing was at shows
Sure.
or through magazines or price guides or whatever. We get our knowledge that way. But the sharing has been really beneficial. Got to know a lot of nice new people, and that's the positive side. The negative side, there's not too much on the negative side. I see the prices going a little insane. I don't like the stock market coming in and ruling our roost. So that's the only downside I don't like of it.
That's fair. I'll echo a lot of what you said about it basically forcing more people to engage. Like it's created the forum, it's created the opening for discussion. Now, not everybody takes advantage of that, but it is there. It is available. We can have gatherings and discussions like this, and we talked about it before. One of the things I like is that you can create this forum. You can have the interview shows; they're doing their thing. You can have the open talk forums. You've got platforms now, like they're playing around with Clubhouse. I know Carvin's a big fan of Clubhouse. Some people like it, some people don't, but you're not forced to go there. But it gives you another option. If it's something you do like, you can kind of just tune in and listen passively, and it gives you another thing. More podcasts than I've ever seen, more YouTube channels than I've ever seen, to the point that even I, who follows a lot of the content, is like, well, I got to pick and choose. And there's so much, I can't. I don't have enough hours in the day. But
they don't have 10 times on the fast forward.
I was joking. I was joking with a couple of folks on the text thread that I've referenced before here. That I was like, I got to lobby YouTube for at least 5x. Like, give me something. Give me something. It's like, guys, I don't have enough hours in the day. I can only do so much. But it's real. It's very much a thing here. So for Jeff here, soccer cards being discovered by the masses is a positive from his perspective. Fair enough. I'm gonna be nice. Let's stick positive.
Okay, let's be nice on that.
Let's be nice. We'll see what happens with that in 2021 and beyond. Let's keep it diplomatic. Let's be diplomatic.
That's saying something without saying something.
Yeah, let's be diplomatic about it. But you know what? If you're enjoying it, good for you, Jeff. If you're enjoying it, then I'm happy for you. One thing I'll say though as well that also kind of in the same vein, depending on what you collect, it's very much dependent on what you collect. The prices did have one positive effect though, is that it did force some cards out of seclusion. Like there were some cards that I think some people were motivated by the prices that they were getting to come out of the woodwork that hadn't been available previously. Because there's some stuff I was tracking that wasn't available for years. And I think it motivated some people to be like, you know what, maybe now's the time to move the card. So it became available where I would not have had a chance to purchase it. Now, that hurt my wallet a little bit for a while, but I was able to get some pieces that I had eluded me for years. In some cases, decades, literally decades.
Well, I have a little addendum.
Go for it.
The one thing that happened with my end of the hobby was there was really no effect. Things didn't go up.
Yeah.
Hardly anything. It stayed organic. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, but it's kind of what we talked about though. And it's one of the kind of the reoccurring themes of the show is that I said, yes, prices are going up, but not all prices are going up. Not on everything. Not on everything. Some stuff. And if you're buying that stuff, then I totally see that being a problem for you. I get it. And I'm not going to downplay, that you've been able to collect for years within a reasonable budget and all of a sudden your budget got blown out of the water. It's not fair. It's not fair.
I know that's hurting the other guys for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I said
even Dave and Steve are talking about that.
Yeah, there's a million areas where I don't mind trolling everyone because it's fun for me, but I'm never going to poke fun at the fact that if you have a budget and you're actually trying to keep to it, that this is an unfortunate time with some of these prices. If you're collecting stuff that is quadrupled in price, that's kind of not fair, and it's really not your fault. Like you were chugging along, doing your thing, adding pieces to your collection over time because that's what you could do. But if you were doing that and all of a sudden the rug got pulled out from under you, I can be sympathetic to that because that really isn't your doing. And you didn't do anything wrong. But for some folks, though, I do think the complaining gets to be a bit much in some instances because in some instances, you got to kind of take advantage for a long time. That retail was there and stuff was being left on the shelf because you didn't care. Yeah. And now all of a sudden you care now that you can't have it.
That's actually the best one.
That's what I mean, though. Like
It's
I'm not sympathetic to that one at all.
No.
No.
See, I don't feel like it's my place to even comment on 2020. To be honest with you, I'm just glad I'm here. So whatever.
Well, there you go. We can all be thankful. 2020 gave us Justin.
That's it. That's the truth.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
Was it 2020 or 2021?
It was 2020. We were on there for that one. Yeah.
December? Where?
I think it was 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020 for sure. I don't know.
Right at the end there.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so quickly,
23rd, I think, actually.
Yeah. And I'll actually show you guys. I did have it queued up here. I'll actually show you an example of good for some people, unfortunate for others, and sometimes right time, right place is the thing. And I'll actually give you a visual example of a recent auction that I'll show you for one. So quickly, I'll grab Jeff's comment here. So Pele cards. So I'm the only Latin person in the world that doesn't care about soccer. Don't care one way or the other. That's why I stay diplomatic. It's like, I personally don't care at all. But with that said, in the sport, Pele is a giant, right? So giants and GOATs, caliber players in the sport, I do think, whereas some of the stuff is not going to have staying power, I do not believe so. Giants and legitimate scarcities and rarity, to borrow Bobby's, the Pele cards and stickers and things that are like legitimate because they haven't survived. There are Pele stickers and cards going back to the 50s. Some of that stuff didn't survive, or it didn't survive in good condition. So if you got a nice one and it's a legitimate condition scarcity, Pele is right up there at the top of the food chain in terms of soccer.
He was, when I was growing up, he was the main name that you'd only remember.
Correct.
He was in the news. You watched him play. I just watched the highlights. You never really got the full, highlight games back in those times.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, if you're a one name individual where I say Pele and there's a whole segment of like the sport population in Europe and in Brazil and all around the Latin American world and all that love soccer. And this is years after he retired. He retired years in the 70s. So we're talking like 40, 50 years ago. And you can say Pele and they'll be like, and if there's somebody's old enough, they're like, oh, I remember Pele, blah, 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 blah. And they'll tell you stories. That's a pantheon player in their sport. In their sport, that's a name. So there's some real staying power to that. Will they care about the card? That maybe not, but at least with a GOAT level, pantheon level player, you got a better shot, way better shot.
Well, it created a lot of these players' cards being more desirable because of the stock market mentality interest that people have, because they're looking for different, hey, if those are going, these are going to go, and this is going to go, and I'm going to get on this. And I think a lot of that was forced. That's the one thing I see in the hobby. That was sort of the negative for 2020 was things were forced, where some were sort of naturally went up because their 10s, their GOATs got it, but other things were kind of forced, and they and those are the ones that'll shrink back fast.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of that Prism stuff for some of those players that is going to have to pull back because it's not really justifiable. If it's the best of the best and it's a true scarcity, a real rare card, this is where I want to take more time on a different live stream. Like I said, tonight we'll control our time here a little bit, but maybe on the Friday, maybe next Friday, we can revisit it with a little longer. We'll flesh it out, the idea, but I'll give you the short version. I make the distinction, and we've talked about it before, I make the distinction between cards of players that are like great players, and we always talk about the Prism Luka as an example. Let's say he becomes an all-time great, just for the sake of argument. Just let's do that. His base Prism will have value, but his true scarcities, his real scarcities, will have much more value because the real collectors, the hardcore collector, only needs one Prism Luka. They're not going to be sitting there with a stack of it, even if a rich one. It's not like, I don't need 100 of these. I need 1 or 2 for my collection. But you know what I want? I want the gold. The gold's out of 10. We can talk about manufacturer scarcity or whatever, but if it's his rookie year, gold out of 10, the first year of manufacturer, and it is one of his best cards from that year, and it is the true scarcity comparatively, the hardcore collector is going to have that one, and that's the one they're going to pay the big bucks for. It will retain that high level value long after the Prism will take a drop just because it's like, well, what is it?
It has to.
50,000 PSA 10s by then? 60,000? Like it's this.
And how many more years of Prism going to keep going on and have?
Well, there's only going to be one first year, and there's only going to be one first year Prism Gold, and the print run is 10. So whether it's PSA 10, PSA 9, PSA 8, it's still 10. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can only have 10. So for the big high-end collector, that can then go in the vault for 20 years, and maybe it resurfaces, but there's only 10. So you're not going to see it for the longest time. And
But how many tens of different cards are going to be out there?
Sure. But I said the first year always has a premium to it, because if it's
Understood.
a rookie year piece, they want it more. And there was a real example where over the last couple of months, you've started to see some of those exquisite basketball from LeBron James's rookie year have come out to market. And some people asked, oh, why are they suddenly coming to market? Well, then one of the high-end collectors who talked to them said, there is a collector who was out there in 2003, whatever, buying them. But they built complete sets of exquisite in these cards. And the reason you haven't seen them in 18 years is because it went and sat in his vault for his collection for 20 years. But now the prices are so high that he's like, now's the time. So all of a sudden you're seeing all of these cards reappear in the market. They were hidden in the cave. They weren't coming out until they felt like bringing it out.
And some are still unopened.
Yes.
It's another factor to take in consideration.
Yeah. But if you talk about those high-end collectors, the ones that are sitting on that stuff for 10, 15, 20 years, you won't see it. And then the day you do, it'll be like, where did this come from? This person stacked them up. They have them. They're there, but they're not available. And you don't know where they are unless you happen to know the person. Maybe you're a friend and you happen to know, oh yeah, you should see their room. You should see the stuff they've got in there. But no, it doesn't see the light of day for a decade.
If it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't know where all the Medanos are hiding.
Hey, exactly right. It's between me and those guys in Europe. That's what 98% of the population is. Yeah, so many raw ores and Bellavos. Yep. No, that's fair enough. So Pele's early cards have reached critical mass. He'd price and interest. That'd be a safe bet. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I tend to agree with you, Robert. That's why I say, not a soccer guy. Don't care for the sport. I can acknowledge, though, his status.
Mbappe.
Yeah, but the reason I say, though, Pele is that my mom, who doesn't really watch any sports at all, but she used to watch soccer when she was younger, and she would speak highly of Pele. I'm like, okay, you don't even care about the sport at this point. You'll watch the World Cup and stuff, but she has recollections of Pele.
He was sort of one of the first guys to do the backwards half kick over his head.
Oh, like the bicycle kick?
Behind, and he scored the goal. That's what Pele was known for at that time. And
which is a super flashy move. And if you're great at it.
Back in the early 70s, it was huge.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. But he was like a superstar. He was a superstar across the board. And that's why I say, like, his legacy, it's still there. Yeah. You find the right people. Like I said, my mom will, if I talk about any sport, she'll have no clue what the hell I'm talking about. If I go, okay, tell me about Pele. Just start talking. So no problem. So let me grab this. So I'm going to show you a card, and I'll relay it to the story I was talking about. How sometimes it's luck and timing. A lot of us that have been collecting for a while, it's not that we're so much smarter than anybody else. It's luck and timing, and the way this market has gone. But this was a recent one that came up here, and it doesn't have to be high-end stuff.
Someone convince you otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so here's good old 1952 Bowman, Mickey Mantle, PSA 1. Okay, this is the low end, PSA 1. Okay. $2,001 USD in auction, open auction.
Getting respect. That's surprising.
Very, very. That's the other 1952 Topps Mantle. So sorry, the other 1952 Mantle.
Rookie.
Yeah. Well, still not rookie though.
No, 51. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the other
52 Mantle.
Yeah, rookie.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I happen to really like this 52 Mantle because I think, to be honest, I enjoy the art on the 52s. To be honest, I personally always liked them. I've always thought they were fun. The 52, yeah, it's a good 52. Now I'm going to scan and zoom in on that in a minute. I'll show that to you again in a second. But the reason I'm bringing it up. Okay. So that's the 1952 Bowman Mantle. So there you go. PSA 1, exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I took a look at it. Mine has more creases. So it's definitely a 1. That one is a 1 as well, but I'm going to zoom in on that other one in a second. So this one, and I'll tell you what I paid for this one in a second. Okay? So same card, just so we're all on the same page.
Carlos is 1,000 there. It's been documented.
I know, right? What the heck? It's worth more than my entire Jamie Benn collection, which will soon hit negatives.
Oh, God.
All right. I'll make a joke about that later, but
sure.
For now. Okay, so let me go and zoom in a little bit on this. Actually, you know what?
You'll have to use the...
I'll use PWCC actually has bigger scans. Let me use that. There we go.
Oh, even better. Wow.
Look at the top of it. Look at the top of his hat.
That's a pinhole.
It doesn't go all the way through the other side, but it's like a scuff, like a damaged hole there.
Wow.
So for me, that isn't so I wanted to show that to you. So now you can see a little better. You can see there's that. I don't like that at the top, but it's a 1. It's a technical 1. Remember, there's a range on 1s. That is valid. That is a 1. That is correct. Legitimate. So
paper loss on it would be a 1.
Correct. Which
So,
it's supposed to be. That
varying degrees of 1.
the grade is accurate. The grade is accurate. There's nothing wrong with that grade.
I think there's 10 different ones.
There could be. So now, for comparison, like I said, this one has more creases and stuff. But now look at the top of his hat.
Big difference. Nice. See,
Nothing wrong with it.
Nope.
Right.
So I'm not
the
saying
card you want. That
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. So the thing is this.
I'll give you 1,000.
Exactly. So this was, I bought this about 5 or 6 years ago, and I bought it for about 450, which was the going rate at the time.
Fair. Yeah.
It was a fair price at the time. Nothing wrong with it. And it's been sitting in my collection this whole time. It's not going anywhere. Big fan of it. 2,000 now. So it's like, but that's what it just sat on the box. I've had it in the collection, and it's one of those things like, this is a set that I've had on my back burner that I was going to work on, but I wanted to make sure I had the mantle first. So my thought process was, I want to make sure I have it so that it doesn't go up on me like that, because I don't want to pay 2,000 for it now with a hole in his head, because that's the going rate, right?
I wouldn't buy the hole in the head.
Exactly. So that's the thing, though. But that's the way it works. So that was a card that appreciated a lot. And then the other one that has done a lot is, of course, the 53 tops.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorites of his. And that's an SGC 1. These things are like...
what's the... Why is it a 1? See, it's the far from good from far.
It's got some paper loss and stuff in the back. It's got creases.
All right.
But for the most part, as far as the card, it's fairly clean. That's why I say, like, if you hold it at a reasonable length, it's not too bad. Yeah. It's a pretty clean picture. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for eye appeal. Within the 1, there's a ton of room for eye appeal and for cards that work.
It's called arm's length, yes.
Yeah, and that's right. Now, same thing. Same thing as I did a second ago. We'll look at this one, and you can probably find other examples of it, but this one's in the newer holder, so we'll do that. There's a 1.
Do you ever see how some of these pictures on eBay, the guy tunes up the
contrast? The contrast?
So much. It's like, okay, it doesn't even look like the card now.
The bottom left corner, I mean, it's rounded like a...
Yeah. But the thing is, for a 1, that's what you're supposed to have. It's a technical 1. That's why I say, like, it doesn't matter.
There could be scales of, I think they could do...
Yeah, you got some wax staining down at the
bottom. You could go 0.
It's a good looking card. But the
to 2. I think with those grades, you go 0 to 2. So you go 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and then get up to a 1 and 1.1, 1.2, because there's so much in there. The paper loss, the creases, the pinholes, the divots, the rounded corner. It's like, man, I got a PSA 1. Well, what kind of one you have? And that's the big question.
But the thing is, for PSA and the SGC and those companies, is like, if I call it poor, there's a range. Why am I going to bother to make that kind of nuance? Guys, it's a 0.97. Oh, come on.
I'm just saying you could range it that way. I wouldn't do that.
You could, but there's
so much.
Yeah, the thing is, nobody's going to argue. Nobody's going to argue it's a poor. Right. It can be a nice looking poor, but nobody's going to argue it's a poor because it has the technical grade.
Well, when you get into those cards, it's what your eye appeal is really.
Correct. Exactly. Poor. That's all you're trying. All you're trying to do is find a 1 that has the eye appeal that you're comfortable with and happy with. Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir. Yeah, and here's the thing, and Robert, you say it, and there are people who would bother to do that. It's like, in my collections, I don't care. It's already in the holder. But I totally get it. The thing is, the card is nice enough. I could probably try to get a bump on it, but why? Like, to me, it makes no difference.
Right.
I wanted to have it in the collection. I just wanted a nice, authentic copy, and it had decent eye appeal, and I was happy. I didn't have to have a pinhole or major paper loss in the front or something crazy, and it fit right in the category, and it's there potentially for the set if I end up doing it.
Yeah, that's what's great about 1 through 5s. It's like, if you're actually buying those, like, there's so much room to work with mentally if you're buying it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But testament what happened. The 53 tops, I got that one for like 500. So both those combined for under 1,000, and the 52 now is double that.
I like the 53 better than the 52 personally, but I'm just saying.
I like both, but I don't blame you, because the 53 were actual portraits made.
Nice.
And it's a nice big card. It's a nice canvas to show off the art. So it's like
the colors pop at the bottom, and
huge fan. I will never downplay the 53.
No, that's an amazing card.
I love it. I love
just
that.
for a headshot. That's actually a pretty and you got a little shoulder in there and the bat, and it's really kind of cool.
But testament to what happens though when you see the opportunity. The takeaway is that if you see the opportunity, sometimes you have to seize it. I looked 5 or 6 years ago, and $500, $400, that's a lot of money for me to spend on a card. It still is, to be honest. I'm not going to immediately jump and snap my fingers and buy a $500 or $600 card. But at the time I said, someday this will be a $1,000 card and I won't be able to do it. Or I will, but only with great difficulty. Let me just bite the bullet now and get her done. Find a nice copy that I'm happy with. And then it's already in the collection. It's done. Yeah. I don't need to worry about it. Well, not today. It's like the two combined are almost 5,000.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And it's like good return, but at the same time, I'm not doing it for the investment piece. I'm doing it because I don't want to spend $5,000 today.
That's it.
It's like I don't want to spend $5,000 in 2021 dollars, so I spent $1,000 in 2015, 2016 dollars. It was a lot more palatable for me at the time.
Perfect.
You're gonna have cards though that I promise you, as much as cards have been going up, I promise you there's still cards out there like that will go up 10x or something stupid over the next decade or so. And it's like people are gonna hesitate, and then 5 or 10 years down the road they'll be like, why didn't I? Sometimes you have to bite the bullet. I'm not telling you to do it right this second, but I'm saying at least give that some thought. Depends on the card.
Justin, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
In 1 or 2 minutes, can you give us the state of the union of the stock market? What's going on? What's happening?
Bobby, you were such a masochist, and I appreciate it on levels.
I understand.
Well, that's a good question. So, right now, I've been.
Or maybe a little trajectory of like last month or a few weeks ago, and it's this now or going forward kind of thing.
So I'll be honest, this last week I haven't been paying attention to the stock market, so I'm not going to be able to give you the best analysis. But from what I can tell by from not paying attention to it, is the stock market is just doing its little thing. It needs attention. The stock market needs attention. And the stock market just is not getting attention right now. And when the stock market doesn't get attention, it goes down. And but I did notice on Friday it did go up. So that was good. And I think it's messing with the sports card market personally, but I think this coming next week, the market will get attention, and I think we're gonna get our shit together.
Why?
Well,
why next week?
So the S&P is holding up pretty well. So here's the thing. So the S&P is holding up. Large cap value is kind of starting to lead the market. Large cap tech is just been in the back seat since September, but it's holding its own. Bitcoin is also a big factor right now, believe it or not, of course, because Bitcoin messes with the valuations of the tech companies, small cap, medium cap, you got the large cap. And the medium and small cap tech companies have been getting hit because Bitcoin isn't going outlandish like it has been. But at the end of the day, now everything's going to be fine. Who cares? This is a couple weeks. A couple weeks is a couple weeks. At the end of the day, everything's going to be fine.
I'd just like to hear the update.
S&P is going to be fine. That doesn't matter. The rest of it will fall into place. Eventually, big cap, value is going to fall back, and tech's going to take the lead again. And then when that happens, Bitcoin will do good, and they'll re-speculate on these stupid tech companies. The next thing you know, sports cards are going to go back up. But right now, it's going to take time. This is how we move forward.
Is it the big tech being affected by the exodus of everyone moving out of California to Texas, trying to get away from the tax burdens in California? for the big tech companies. Like
Yeah.
Oracle moved.
I want to hit on one thing with you, Bobby, on that one, because I totally, I see what you're saying, but one of the things that's going to be fun for me is I want to see if enough people move out of California that the price goes down, that the prices go down, that a bunch of people move into California. Because it's always fun for me. It's always fun for me that people complain about the tax and I get it. I do. But the thing is that it's like, look, you're paying more because, and this is the same as the real estate thing. Oh my God, real estate's so expensive because people actually want to live there.
Mhm.
Like, it's like, oh, but it's so much cheaper. You can buy a palatial estate in Montana. That's because no one wants to live in Montana.
Mhm.
If everybody and their brother wanted to live in Montana, you wouldn't be able to afford a shack in Montana because that's what would happen. The price would go through the roof.
Well, that's what they're saying is happening with Texas. Is the prices are going up now,
correct.
and
That's
all the tech companies are
because
moving.
the non-state tax, it's a double-edged sword. It sounds real good, but it's also appealing. So then and one thing, and this is more of a macroeconomic kind of conversation, but the reality is, though, you've got so many jobs now that don't require you to be physically present. And if you can work anywhere in the world, theoretically, you don't have to be local to whatever job you're doing and whatever company you're doing. As long as you're in a place with decent internet, so maybe you move to Texas for the no state tax, no income tax, and then you do your online work.
But the water bill is huge there. I have a problem
It's all
with water.
all of it gets measured. What is the real estate price? What is the cost of taxes? What is the cost of water bill? What is the cost of whatever? Do you get a freak snowstorm and you have no infrastructure to handle it and you lose power? All of it is part of the equation. All of
Steve
it.
can confirm it.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, like, I can't blame them because it's not normal for them. But at the same, like, stuff happens. There is no perfect place. That's why I have fun with every time somebody's in a place that maybe they've lived for a lifetime and maybe they just don't like it. Then they move. Oh, it's so much better over here. And then the locals are, oh no, it's so much better over there. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's life. That's normal.
True enough.
Yeah. You'll always complain more about the place you live unless you happen to be irrationally loving it, in which case you're kind of weird. There are people who like irrationally love where they live so much that it's like, okay, it's too much. Calm down. It's not perfect. Settle down.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. I have yet to see the perfect place. It does not exist.
No.
No,
Maybe
it
not.
doesn't. Yeah, but you talk to some of those folks and you would think it does. It was like, okay, what about the smog pollution? Oh, that's a feature. Shut up.
Yeah, what's funny
Trust me,
is-
they'll come up with justifications for everything. You find a problem and they're like, no, it's great. No, it isn't. Stop it.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
funny
so-
that you say this because I do home equity lines of credit in California only. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it depends on the place.
That's
why I
all
say
they
that-
do?
I only deal with California people, and then out of nowhere, we stopped taking applications, and now I'm dealing with people who's quit accounts, people in Connecticut, and blah blah blah. These people are just way different than the Californians. Californians are living in their own world. These people over there, it's funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm including Giamaz's comment just in here. It's like case by case, guys. It's case by case. I play it out every show. We reevaluate the situation. We reevaluate.
Every
And also, by the way, like I said, nobody else decided to hit the link tonight. So what the heck? We'll have a little fun. Justin's contributing just fine tonight. So, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
So let's do this one. So positivity zombies. It's like, that's one way of phrasing it. I don't have an issue with positivity because it has its place, but it has to be positivity grounded in reality. You can be somebody who can be like, okay, look, if you're trying to counter somebody that's going maybe too far the other end of the spectrum, if you're being irrationally negative, I got a problem with that. Like if you're being irrationally positive, I got a problem with that. The key common element being irrational.
Rational.
Like, calm down. Like there's a little bit of gray.
Give me an example of irrational positive.
Why don't you give us an example? Why don't you give us an example, Bobby, since you're bringing it up?
Hey, listen, the question went this way. It went this way, not this way.
Negative. Sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never sit there and I like being contrarian, but I'm also never going to be, I'm never just sitting there trying to figure out only negative to say. You really lost yourself there, Bobby.
That was funny.
It was funny, but it wasn't that funny.
Oh, it was. It is.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So the thing is that,
So everybody's got that blank stare.
Exactly. You can always poke holes into just about anything. But if you're going to do it, then make sure you're poking holes to like, okay, no, look, there's actually something wrong here. It can't just be that way. It's not that way all the time. It's not perfect. That's why when we had that Comc conversation earlier, it's like, look, unfortunately, people, they talked about how it's a hot button issue. True. We talked about how, people have this. It's a real problem. It's a
Great
real issue.
content.
But it's also, but the problem that Comc's having is also real. Like it's a real issue, and they have not resolved it to anyone's satisfaction. And there's nothing they can say that will change the fact it has not been resolved to anyone's satisfaction. And even if they come up with the perfect solution now, it's been a year. I would love for you to come up with a perfect solution. It doesn't fix the last year. It doesn't fix it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to give you credit then. It's not going to have. It's not going to have it.
A lot of these guys are having problems. All these companies, it's great content, it's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be talking about PSA 10s till the cows come home.
That's one of those topics though that you can touch on because there's a lot of opinions on it, and that's
Great.
okay. It makes for a good topic. Like I said, I had a full page of stuff. I got to one of the things on there. So, well, great. I get to push that to next week then. Some of this stuff is evergreen. Like some of this stuff is like general topics and stuff. I love those because they don't have to be done tonight. We can come back to them later.
Yeah, and that's good. I listened to a few other podcasts today. I was looking for something. I don't know. I was, eating my lunch, and I figured I'd try to watch something. When you want to eat and sit back and relax and have a sandwich. I was sitting. I couldn't find anything good. Everything I started watching for a minute, you go to take a bite, you go, it's him again. He's talking that. It was so hard to find good content. Honestly, it really is. Not to say that we're great content or better than. I'm just stating that some of the stuff is just reiteration, constant turnaround.
Well, that's the reason why it's 1 second. That's the reason why it's so important to be able to take in enough, because I watched a lot of these same ones that you're talking about. And the problem is that they're taking their information from one or two sources. So you're going to get stuck into this one. That's why I'm like, no, tell me if some of you guys have some ideas. I want to hear, because if you guys all say the same thing, well, then I kind of know what we have to talk about because it's obviously important enough to you that you're all coming to the same conclusion. But what usually happens is maybe person A has, oh, what about this thing? Person B has a completely different thing. I'm like, oh, good. The more different things there are, it's like, okay, there's a couple directions we can take with this. Yeah. And usually the topics have layers. Because if we had done a lot
of layers, yeah, we did go deep.
But if we had done just a PSA topic, just been like, oh yeah, PSA sucks at being consistent with PSA 10. Okay, that's a 2-minute conversation, and it's over. There's no nuance. But then it's like, oh well, what if another company came out? It was a good question. I didn't mind it. It was still like, oh good, you've got an idea, you've got a comment and question, great, because then we can talk about it a little bit more, and there's more to talk about, and then there's some other angles and different directions we can take with it. But if it's just one or two directions, well, yeah, every podcast is going to be exactly the same every time.
Yeah.
I'll get bored. You'll get bored. We'll all get bored sitting here. The chat will get bored.
Yeah. Jeremy's show was good last night. What's his name was really good. He had a different perspective. It was nice.
Yeah. The high-end super collector.
No.
Billy?
Billy. Yeah. He talked differently than he did with, on what's that other show? Starts with a C, ends with a C.
Allegedly exists?
Allegedly
is it? Alleged show?
Hashtag alleged.
Yes.
So he was good on that, but also last night he was really good because he went pretty deep on a few things, and that was nice to hear. He didn't hold back, which was very nice when you hear the real stuff from the real guys. As much as it doesn't concern me with all the newer cars that he's producing and doing, it's just interesting to hear on my part. So
no, I will say it's one of those things that's interesting for me because I do keep a foot firmly in the current, right? But at the same time, when it comes to industry folks, and Billy's a great storyteller. He's a very nice guy from everything I've seen. He's a good storyteller. But one thing that's always interesting for me, and part of the reason why I've made the statement about being kind of over a lot of interview, I still listen to that one because I knew Billy would have some good information to talk about, some stories. Mm-hmm. It's worthwhile me checking out kind of on replay because then I can listen to it quickly, absorb whatever information is given, and it works for me. In the live, it's like, okay, great, but it's a little slow at that time. Let me run it back.
Yeah.
But the good news is I listen to some of that stuff, but it gets really tricky for me to listen to a lot of modern brands. But my reasoning for it is going to be different than yours, and that is this. Although I have a foot in the current, as a collector, I only really care about the checklist. I don't care about the why. You don't need to explain it to me. I will look at the sheet, and if there's something that interests me, I'll buy it. I'm not buying the boxes or the packs, so it doesn't matter what you produced or what it is. I'm only really looking at it for my players. So if they happen to be in the checklist, awesome. I'll then decide if I like it or not. I'll make my own decision as a consumer. Go ahead.
Sure, there's parts that bore you, through that don't interest you. That's the only reason why it bores you. It's sort of like, well, okay, I don't care about that. But then there was a lot of other little good things. So, we're looking for little nuggets here and there, and that's the whole fun part about it. But everything that we talk about here isn't gold, although a lot of it is.
I was going to say there's a lot of gold there, Bobby. A lot of gold.
Just trying to be,
Yeah, but the reason I'm saying though is that for somebody who's buying the current product, buying the boxes, buying the different inserts, putting together those sets, it is actually super useful. Super useful. For somebody who's collecting a very specific subsection of it, then for me it's just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing. It's like, look, I literally just need the checklist. Give me the checklist so that I know what's in it. The particulars of the specific issue doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Show me the checklist. Show me what the cards look like. I'll make my decision.
Yeah.
Because that's all I really require. So in that situation, if I was going to have a conversation with Billy, it wouldn't be about the specific product because I don't care. Not because I wouldn't buy cards from the product, but it's that what you're telling me isn't going to sway me one way or the other.
It's like when I look up write-ups on cards and they have a picture of the card. This isn't the 70s anymore. There's a picture of the card that they tell you, oh, it has this border and there's a puck and the team names at the bottom in red. It's like, you had to write that. Like, you couldn't get, like, they have 2 or 3 paragraphs on their write-ups, and I read it and I go, well, you can take that one out of there because you don't need to, because the card is the card. You don't need to explain things like you can't see them in a price guide from the 70s. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I just comparative.
No, that's fair. But that's why I say the main idea that I wanted to make sure I push forward with that is not that there's anything wrong with what he's saying, is that there are going to be collectors that are coming into this at different levels. And there's going to be, even for modern, not everybody's interested in every product. So explaining some of the idea behind the product, it's like, whatever. But like I said, for me, it's easy. But I've also been in it long enough where it's like I can make my decision quickly. My decision is based on what is the card? Are there cards that I'm interested in? Potentially. Okay, let me look at the card. Do they look good to me? Yes. Okay, is the price point potentially reasonable? Probably. Okay, cool. Let me go when they show up on eBay. I'll make my offers and my bids, and we'll go from there. If I look at it like this year's the cup, I made fun of it because to me they're ugly. To me, like Billy inadvertently saved me money because for me aesthetically, it's not that I'm not in the market and that I wouldn't buy them. It's that to me they didn't look like I got so much backlog that I could go buy. I'm not going to run for those. I'll look at other stuff first. So I'll grab quickly the 2 comments here because Rick Vintage Oddball Cards had a good question. So it says, when he asked Billy how many products he's putting out, he looked panicked and said he had no idea. Part of that is also that Billy's kind of siloed. As a product manager, he's got a portfolio. So he's looking at a piece of the pie, not the whole pie.
And how was Sanderson able to ask that question?
That was in the live chat.
It just happened.
He was in the wrong place.
Jeremy will randomly pick a question. That's what happened.
Yeah, the reality is though that, like, I'll be honest with you, if you wanted to know the answer to that, you really wanted to know the answer to that, you could probably reach out to Billy on social media and he'd be like, okay, let me double check. No, like literally all he would have to live. He's like, I don't have the list in front of me. I don't know the answer to that question. But if you ask him like on social media and give him a day or so, and he could go over to Grant, I think it was his boss, and he'd be like, Grant would be like 86, and he goes back 86. You get the answer to your question.
And I think that's the thing that I also like about 2020 is that these guys are more obtainable and reachable, and you can contact him directly now. So through social media, it's opened that door where it was kind of closed before, and you don't want to encroach on somebody's privacy. But now they're public figures, and you can contact them and ask them like anybody can contact me. I got Facebook, and just contact me, and if you have a question about something.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true. The reason why I say though, the reason I wanted to make that distinction is that as a representative of Upper Deck, Billy does have to be careful what he says. That's true.
Oh,
That's
I get
reality.
it.
He has to be super careful.
I thought he
But-
was on a line with something there.
Yeah. There were a couple of things there that he was. I saw that he maneuvered himself very well out of that.
Yeah,
but-
it was good.
But the question about how many products they're putting out is actually a question he doesn't personally have the answer to, but he could get it.
Yep.
Because that's public knowledge. Because the reality is you're going to look at the spec sheet. Guess what? Products. Well, you're going to have a list by the time the year's over. So you do have the answer to that question. He personally doesn't have the answer to the question, but he can get it. He can put it. He can go like, okay, what do we got scheduled so far for the year? Blah blah blah. Because he has to give that information to Beckett anyway.
Yeah.
So they can't hide it from you. It's like, but he's not going to have it in his mind because he's not overseeing the whole thing.
No, I understand. And I'm sure you're watching it going, say it, Billy, say it. Come on. No. You didn't say it.
247.
No.
Exactly. All right. So Rick here, Vintage Oddball Cards, asks, any question for Crosby or Ovechkin rookie under $1,000? Okay. So I'll try to answer it, Rick, as best I can. I've actually been looking into this a little bit. I am legitimately, the Ovechkin in particular, I'm interested. It's going to be tricky. So what I'll ask you, Rick, if you can clarify one thing for me, it'll make my life a little easier. Are you looking for graded or ungraded? I'm assuming graded, but you'll have to clarify for me. Ungraded is going to make this tougher. Not impossible, but tougher. Are you thinking graded or ungraded? Because I've been doing a little research into this, and it's gotten tough. Let me tell you, my friend, it has gotten tough.
Yeah.
Those things have really gone up, and it's there was a window there, and that window is just about shut for some of the really good ones that I would recommend to you. But just let me know, graded or ungraded.
Oh, Justin, how's your Jordan sticker? Has that come up to market? Like you have an 8.5?
8. Yeah.
8.
I don't know.
Has one sold recently?
I haven't been paying attention, to be honest with you.
Oh,
But the thing is this: like if I would have sold 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when the thing was worth $15,000, whoever I sold it to would have returned it. It's as simple as that. So
On eBay, yeah. On eBay, yes.
Yeah, eBay flawed. So like I don't care that blah 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 this and that. I don't care about that. At the end of the day, it'll go back up over time.
no, I didn't know if it's been up or down. I haven't followed it.
You know what?
But I know you own one.
My guess personally is probably worth about $5,000.
5?
Yeah.
And was that 15?
It was at 15,000 like 3 weeks ago after the Michael Jordan sale.
So that's one of those ones that went down, I guess.
Who actually captured that though? You know what I mean? I mean, anybody and their brother, besides a couple people, is going to return that on eBay and act like they did it by accident or something, or the blah blah blah.
So this actually, ironically, it actually brings up a very good, a very interesting point, because any card in the 5-figure range, and this is the great, also a consequence of 2020. If you have a card in the 5-figure range, I probably wouldn't do eBay.
I don't think so. You'd go auction house.
I'd have to go auction house.
You got to go PWCC or auction.
PWCC is eBay.
They still under their same guys.
They will handle it for you. They'll handle it for you, but it's still eBay.
You're right.
The situation hasn't changed. So like PWCC, I can't blame them, but they've kind of put themselves into a corner because now it's like, okay, so they'll handle the return for you. You personally do not have to handle the return, but if they return it, they return to PWCC, and PWCC,
They want your money
I can
back.
put it up again.
Yeah,
And that's all they can do. That's all they can do for you.
But
it
they're
almost
dealing with
forces you.
a high-end clientele, which helps, though.
Yeah, but I will say this: it kind of forces you into Golden's hands.
Oh yes,
That-
he
that-
has
that-
the golden hand out.
I want to touch on this.
Oh,
Not right now.
I know.
But the reason why I said though, it brought up an excellent topic. That is a very interesting thing because now we've got this weird world where if you're in that price bracket, you are almost forced, because at least he has vetted buyers and really doesn't allow returns. So it's like, no, you're supposed to pay. If you're not, you're out of here. And because he controls the people in it.
Do they offer refunds?
Not really. It has to be extraordinary circumstance. Like you really have to be like, there better be a really good reason why you bid on this when we vetted you, and now you're asking for a refund. Something has to have gone wrong, really wrong here.
See, what's messed up is I used to I used to service brokerage accounts, And I used to have these degenerate gamblers, we could call them, would call me and be like, I never placed that trade. I never placed that trade. You're lying, you know? And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not lying? Let me check my trade desk. And I go to the trade desk and they go, yeah, he literally went online like he always does, per his notes before, that he's done this like 15 times. You know, so, you know, I'm used to people lying about this stuff. And that's the problem with sports cards, you know. That's going to be the problem in the future, is that.
So you do think that person who sold that Jordan sticker of 8 for $15K returned it?
Probably. I mean, maybe
right now there's a real likelihood.
During that same week, it went down to 10 grand.
See that?
By the time the guy received a card, he probably felt like it could have gone back up because he was dumbass anyways for mine. And at the time, who knows if he was a dumbass, right? Because it could have went to 30. So he probably held it.
Two quick things, guys. Two quick things. I am monitoring the time, so I want to kind of put the kibosh on that. I want to talk. I want to address Rick's question because I did a quick bit of research while you were chatting.
Oh.
So I will say, if you were at the buyer at the 15,000, this is not investment advice. But if you're the buyer at the 15,000, just keep the damn card. It'll probably go up. Like not right this second, but if you just hang on to it a while longer, you'll probably be fine.
But if it was you, would you return it, Justin?
No, I wouldn't have bought it. You know, I wouldn't.
You did.
I wouldn't do that. I'm just not that type of person.
I'm not that type of person either.
I would, but also, like, if you're going to spend that much money, I hope you did some diligence. Like, I know that people don't. Just so we're clear, I know that people don't.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, if you're going to spend that kind of money, here's advice that I'm willing to stand behind. If you're going to spend 5 figures on a card, do some diligence, do some research, talk to some people, do something before you pull the trigger on that. And then when you do it, deal with it. Hang on to it if you have to. Do whatever you need to. Because if you've done your diligence and you've done some good diligence, you've probably gotten some advice from somebody who knows, hopefully. And they're going to tell you, just hang on to it. Just chill. Right now, Jordan, in the long term, a bunch of this stuff is going to go up again. It'll be 25 in a year. So chill out. Whatever it is.
Hope so.
But I'm saying, like, there's a real possibility with some of that stuff. It's like, if you're buying it at that price and you actually think it has room, well, then chill out. It's going to do the up and down thing. It's going to happen over and over again. Calm down.
Yeah, we just came over a big mountain and we're coming back down, but that's the way stock market goes. Boom, boom,
Correct.
boom, boom, boom.
Correct.
We don't know if it's going to go boom or we don't know it's going to go boom again.
Correct.
Look at Bitcoin.
Well, we'll see about the long-term prospects of that, but that's a different podcast. We'll get Crypto Griffin for that
We
one.
got a lot of different podcasts to do.
I'm okay with that, Bobby. It gives the
Content.
It gives the content.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So Rick, thank you for being patient. I did do a little research while we were having that conversation. It's going to get tough. I'll be honest with you. 1,000 is really tough now because, like I said, I'm going to use Ovechkin. Crosby is very similar, but I'll use Ovechkin as an example. I have been watching this market a little bit because I was looking at getting some cards as well. Something like in a PSA 9, same vein as what you're talking about. So I'm familiar. That's why
Competition.
I say it's not going to be because of the prices that they're going for. It's not. I'm not competing that hard.
No.
I'll tell you that the Young Gun is out of that range now. You're probably looking at 1,500, close to 2,000. So you're out of there. You're blown out of the water. That would be a beautiful recommendation. Can't do it. You're out of that range. Black Diamond, borderline. I love the card personally. Hobby love wise, it's not going to be the top end, but if Ovechkin continues to appreciate, it's not going to be a bad thing. That one probably you're still good. Maybe if you get it on the right, you might have to do an offline deal though. Like some of these folks on eBay are being really generous with their pricing, and they're really trying to hold the line, waiting for that price bump to happen. So you might have to do a deal with maybe somebody who has inventory and can work with you on it. So I'll throw Black Diamond as a possibility. The one that is starting to creep up, why I know it's going to be a problem, and I'll see if I have it here. I can show you. I don't have it in a 9, but I'll show you the card so that you understand what I'm saying.
So the Black Diamond is just under 1,000?
A couple of them recently in late February and early March sold for around just under 1,000. So it's close. It's in that borderline. So this one here, I saw one that actually sold for 1,000. So it's right at that line, which tells you what prices have been doing. So the Fleer Ultra. So I don't have it graded, obviously, but in a 9, one of these sold for 1,000 recently.
It's a nice looking card.
Yeah, so I got to take a good look at it, but I'm going to send it in anyway. This is a personal PC item for now, But if it goes like these things have been going up like crazy.
Hard.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's an 8.5 OC.
Doesn't matter. So to me, I paid the princely sum of $45 for it. So
There you go.
so either way, I'm not terribly concerned.
And what are they going for in a 9, say?
In a 9,000.
That one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Like the prices have really been creeping up on those.
You say 9,000 for a 10?
1,000 for a 9.
Oh, okay.
Oops.
That's
So Rick, I would say to you, you got to be looking around. Now, that might have been an outlier because I've only seen one right now. But those ultras have been going up. The Black Diamond, I saw one for like 945, 950. So you're right up against that number. There's a couple of other ones, but they tend to go a little bit further down. I have a Victory 9 personally, but those have been going up too. And Victory is a low end brand. Oh,
gosh.
Bobby, you'd be shocked. You'd be horrified. You would be horrified.
Because Victory is like on the low.
But it doesn't matter because the Ovechkin, so a 9, a Victory 9, I can tell you.
Kicked 40 of those out of my way, you know.
One of them sold for $150. Buy it now for a 9. A Victory 9.
Whoa.
And my Victory 9 was one that I had graded. I got a 9 on it because it wasn't like a little off. But I paid $12 for it. So it's like
cardboard stock is horrible on those.
I'm totally with you. I get it. But yeah. I'm only reporting the news, Bobby. I'm not making the news. I'm reporting the news.
I'm just telling you.
I'm saying that the possibility, remote as it is, because it would be seasons from now, the remote possibility that he could be an 800 goal guy, which is plausible. The Gretzky is a long shot, but he's the only guy who's got a shot. He's the only one for miles. So there's nobody else. Like now Crosby is going to be in the same ballpark for some of these cards. So that's why I'm using Ovechkin, but Crosby is going to be similar for some of these price-wise. So just be aware of that. You're going to be in the same ballpark. You might get a little variance. I think Crosby might be a little low right now. So maybe if you find a good deal on a Crosby, maybe grab that. But you're going to be in the same ballpark for a lot of this stuff. And they've been back and forth over the last couple of years. To be fair though, I think what's going to happen, and this is just strictly my opinion, I'm merely telling you, I think there will be some more headroom on Ovechkin, only because now he is about 10 goals behind Marcel Dion, less than 10 goals, and then less than 20 goals from Brett Hull. And as soon as that happens, he's fourth all time behind Jágr, behind Howe, and behind Gretzky. He's the only guy who started playing in the 2000s, who is in that category. Mm-hmm. The only one. Jágr started in 1990. Gordie Howe started in the 40s, and when Gretzky started in 1979. And they all had a touch with either the 1980s or the 1990s. Ovechkin is the only guy who did not benefit from any of those cheat code eras of the NHL. And he has scored 720 plus goals.
Yeah, and he's so good that he could play another 4 or 5 years and do it no problem.
Yeah, if he's determined enough, he's the only
guy. He will
be.
Once he passes those next, and he's going to get so close.
But he's the only guy who's got a shot, and the advantage you have is that it will take a couple of years no matter what. It's not going to happen tonight. It's not going to happen in a month or a year. It's going to take years, plural.
Yeah.
But as we go further along, and by the way, little caveat, next year, the NHL returns to ESPN.
Yeah.
So the NHL gets a higher profile. What do you think happens if after the NHL returns to ESPN, all of a sudden we got the Ovechkin Gretzky watch in a couple of years?
Big.
No hashtag investment advice here, but I am merely pointing out some statements of fact that are real. So the reason why I bought a couple of those Ovechkin cards is I'm like, I was on this about a year ago, and even then I was starting to get priced out of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, but if you want to play, you've still got a little time, but don't take too long on some of that stuff. So hopefully that helped. I wanted to be a little more detailed on that because I had been doing the research on it. So hopefully that's that references it. And Robert has a comment here. I'll touch on that as well real quick. So we'll finish this off, guys, and let's ask a couple comments, and then we'll sign off here. So eBay mentioned on Wednesday they'll be tightening return policies. I hope so, but we'll see what that happens. So we'll see if that occurs. Sweet looking card. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. OV needs 171 more. Yeah, I'm saying like he's going to have to want it. And if he wants it though, he's still playing at a high level. He's still scoring goals. So The next couple of years will tell the tale. If he can score a decent amount of goals over the next couple of years, he'll at least give himself a shot. He'll give himself a shot.
It's a lot of goals.
It doesn't matter, though. I don't care. If he gets to 800, he will be easily the best goal scorer, pound for pound, in generations. So it's because, like I said, Gretzky, the 1980s is a cheat code. It almost doesn't count. It's unfair. And he didn't get to benefit from any of that. And I'll touch, Robert makes a point here. I'll touch on that in a second. So Rick says, I agree. If I had to choose and pick up Ovechkin now, Crosby wait 5 years. You got a little room for Crosby. Again, if you want Crosby, I'm not deterring you. You do have a little more time though, officially. So, yep. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Nope, you're 100% right, Robert, but Howe did play 100 years. So that helps. It helps. Like, he played in the 40s, he played in the 50s, he played in the 60s, he played in the 70s. And by the time he got to the 70s, he retired, went to the WHA, and then came back to the NHL and played a year in 79-80. So he just played so long. Now, he was great consistently over a very long period of time. That's how he accomplished that. But the 70s also was a pretty good era for scoring. Although
no one will match him. No one will ever match Howe for that many decades.
In terms of number of seasons, no, I don't think so. So that was good. But Gretzky obviously was prolific in terms of his scoring ability. But like I said, the 1980s was a cheat code. If you go through the top all-time scorers, most of those players either played in the 70s,
Edmonton.
the 80s, or the early 90s. All of them had a run in those 3 decades.
Yes.
All of them. Except basically for Ovechkin, and if you want to say how based on that, sure, I'm with you.
Because in that 70s, you could play older.
Well,
there's a lot of older players.
Phil Esposito was a 700 goal scorer who retired in like 81.
Was it New York Rangers?
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say though. Like, he didn't get to benefit from the entire 1980s, and he was a 700 goal scorer. He's the only guy who was kind of on the outside as well with Howe. But the 70s was still reasonably high scoring. Not to the same level as the 80s, but still pretty high scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'm giving context.
So high scoring, like,
because it became super high octane. The WHA team and players came in, and if you go back and watch the highlights, the goalies basically were your plumber, and they had pads the size of like a thimble.
Basically.
Yeah, and if you watch, like, Gretzky basically was smarter than a lot of other players in his era. It's not to say he wasn't skilled. He was super skilled. But he was also basically playing against players who like had no idea what the heck they were doing, and he basically skated around them like they were pylons, and then made goaltenders look stupid.
Yeah, the goaltenders all stood up all the time.
Yeah, the butterfly style didn't come into vogue yet.
So all the goals went down probably below 1 foot of the net. Now they all go 1 foot above the shoulders of the net.
Yeah, because that's the spot you can hit. The goaltenders will not give you that bottom area.
Down. No.
Before you had that entire bottom section, you had a lot of room to shoot.
A lot.
So I'm not discounting any of these players, but when you look at the all-time goal scorers, check out how many of them played in the 1980s. It's not a coincidence. It's not an accident. Just understand that. That's why I say I give Ovechkin double bonus points, because no one's even close.
No.
Ace have to go top right every time.
Yeah.
Ovechkin has demonstrated a lot of skill and a ridiculous amount of consistency to get to this point, because Crosby's super skilled too, by the way. Crosby started at the same time he did. Ovechkin has 250 more goals than he does. 250. And Crosby is a first ballot Hall of Famer by most standards. I think most people are comfortable with that. 250. That discrepancy is obscene. It's not fair. So bear that in mind. When Ovechkin retires, all of a sudden people will be like, if we take into account his era, it wasn't like that. Nobody else even came close in scoring like that consistently for that long in his era. What the heck?
And the team is a factor too.
True.
Bobby Orr, huge Bruins, Gretzky, tons of Edmonton players that are amazing. Ovechkin?
Hey, is he Russian, by the way? Ovechkin?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're finishing up here. So Victor says, yeah, official investment channel. Sure. Hashtag invest. Imagine if you never went to WHA, meaning how? Totally agree with you. LaFleur kept coming back. True. P. Peters had the lowest GA in the 1980s decade, except, Tretiak. Yep, I'm with you. All right, Mr. LAGN, good night. Perfect. That would be the last word. So hopefully now you understand. I gave you a little context for the Ovechkin, so that's your little bonus at the end. We are now done. Thank you, Bobby, for hanging out. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks,
Justin,
guys.
Thanks for popping in.
Justin.
All right. We are done. Justin got to the end of the episode. I'm not going to be mean. I could be totally mean. I'm not going to do it. I'll be nice. All right, Justin, you get to stay to the end. All right. Have yourselves a good night, everybody. Appreciate you. It is now Monday on the East Coast. Have a good Monday. Have a good rest of the week. We'll catch you on Friday. We'll be back on the channel with an episode. Take it easy.
Good night.
Yes.